All right. What a song that is, by the way. Wow. Welcome, everyone, to the Edge of Speculation. A new episode. Is this the third week? Yeah, this is the third week where we will be once again doing some crazy Final Fantasy VII Remake slash Rebirth theory crafting. And today we have the big one of the most important and pivotal parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is the famous Singularity of Chapter 18 that has been interpreted by so many people in so many different ways and has led to so many different theories. Technically, I feel like if you remove Chapter 18, you almost get a different story in terms of interpretation today. But anyways, we'll talk about that and more. With me today, as you might have guessed, guys, based on the title, is my good friend Bunkei. Bunkei, hello, my friend. Really happy to have you over.
Thank you for having me.
So excited to do some crazy theory crafting once again. So you guys, some of you might have already seen Bunkei in one of the previous streams or one of the Discord channels. We have been talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake stuff for months, literally. And I can tell you guys that some of the stuff that you might be coming across in terms of theory and whatnot, and all the kind of crazy stuff actually has a lot to do with him because he either confirms some of the things that that some of the crazy theories that I throw at him, or he comes up with some crazy theories of his own. And the chats are always amazing in terms of theory crafting.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fun. And this wasn't the intention. I think that the dialogue that's been on all over the social media platforms, especially on X, the developers wanted this. They wanted all of this because I wouldn't have it any other way, even though sometimes the dialogue gets a little negative. But at least there's dialogue. And if they would have done a one-to-one remake, we'd be just like, okay, just wait for the next game. We already know what's going to happen. But now it seems like that things may not happen the way that we remember. And I think that this was all intentional. So I love it. You know, as the young people say, I want all the smoke. So I'm loving every minute of it.
And I feel like you already answered one of the biggest questions that we might be tackling today, which is what's the point of all of this? Why go and convolute the story to this point? And obviously there are so many different interpretations for that fact alone, and we will talk about all of that. Cam in the chat says, brother, what in the world has been going on this week? How are you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Cam. It's been insane in terms of Final Fantasy VII discourse. So, Bunkei, I know you are discovering what happened, literally for the past couple of hours, because I'm not sure how active you were on X during the past 3-4 days. There's been an insane amount of discourse. We did promise, however, that I went on a rant yesterday. I'm so sorry, everyone who was there or who was not there, if you checked that out. But I did go on a bit of a rant, which was not really going after anyone, but just really being kind of annoyed by the whole situation, which means that we wanted to really keep the session or the focus today on the topic at hand, right? Because otherwise we risk going in all sorts of different directions, and this stream is going to end up being 3 hours, 2 hours and a half of discourse and 30 minutes of actual Singularity chat, and that's not what we want, right?
Yeah, exactly. The whole idea here is to find common ground. Something that you said earlier. If we're all Final Fantasy VII fans, we should all be able to find common ground. That should not be something that that should be unattainable.
That's exactly it. I really feel like that's what it boils down to. Is the fact that we have so much more in common than the things that actually divide us. Just a heads up that there is a brief delay between your voice and the video. Thank you so much for letting me know, Cam. I will go back to this actually so that we kind of avoid any kind of voice issues, because I do understand how there might be delay. And I'm going to stop some of the useless stuff that was already running on my computer. Hopefully everyone is able to see this fine. I don't want to take much longer, so I think we will dive almost straight into it, but I do have a question that I wanted to ask you, Bunkei. And as we say this, I realize that there is some issue with the overlays, but anyways, I'll fix that while you answer. But before we start, or as an introduction to what we're going to say, what if you were to summarize in 2 sentences or a couple of statements what you think the whole Singularity is about from Remake, how would you go about it?
This is about exploring Cloud's consciousness on many different layers. And I say that based upon the interview that Namira did. There's that one interview is the deepest look into the story of Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, and that's where I really learned that it's not a multiverse, it's not a anything like that, it's not alternate timelines. He did not talk about any of that. He talks about that the different worlds we see in Remake are all distorted perceptions of the Final Fantasy VII story. But the question is, whose distorted perception?
I feel like you hit the nail on the head there, because the question is, what's the purpose once again? And Nojima and Nomura have been very vocal about wanting to make the characters or players part of the story as much as possible. And so it seems like they are leaning on this way too much for some people. Obviously, in my opinion, I think it works well because they have a story that they can tell on multiple layers. One layer is the characters experiencing that, and then one layer is the meta narrative or whatever. What I feel is kind of lost is, what does this mean for the characters? So I feel like as those who have played DOG, we kind of understand, or we even overanalyze whatever happens with player-driven narratives, let's say. But I feel like we just skip this step where we need to actually understand what this means for the story that the characters are experiencing to begin with, before we even talk about anything like the meta narrative and whatnot, right?
Right. And I think that, again, I think where we should start in this whole dialogue is, what is their attention here? I think they have been, one of the things that have not been inconsistent on is that they have always said that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a reimagining of the original.
Yeah.
It is not. They have never used the term sequel or anything of that sort. And I think that if we're going to try to find out what's going on in this story, we should approach it from the standpoint that this is the Final Fantasy VII story. It's just that it's using new language. In fact, when you play through all of Remake, all the way up to chapter 18, it's pretty much more or less one-to-one with the OG. But when they get to the Expressway, it's like they start talking in a different language. And when Aerith and Sephiroth starts talking, you like, what the heck is going on? It's like there's definitely a tonal shift in what's going on, because everything up to there was just action-packed adventure, the Final Fantasy VII adventure we've always loved, we've been waiting for, and then the conversation completely changes, and it's as if that Aerith and Sephiroth are talking in code.
Yeah, I think this is very much what it is that it all flips. It all becomes flipped on its head when we get to the Singularity or to the Expressway. It almost feels like a completely detached section from whatever happened before, right? So we will talk about all of this. I just want to set the stage first with a couple of things with how we imagine this section, or the analysis of this section, will go. Catching up with chat as well. Hey, Cheese Pop, thank you for tuning in. Hey, Joe. I'm pretty much over the drama with Trilogy this week. I wish people can just enjoy this time we are in, because it's not going to last. I totally agree. Like, we need to come together and to celebrate and to enjoy this thing that we love so much, that is being remade over 3 freaking games over 7 or 8 years. This is, I still can't, overemphasize how insanely lucky we are. Husho says that is patently false. Can you let me know what you're talking about specifically? Was it something that I said or that Bunke said? We can elaborate on it a bit more. And let me just, guys, walk you through what we how I imagine essentially this section going. So when we talk about the Singularity, the challenge is that it all goes into completely different directions, and it becomes very confusing very quickly, right? So we wanted to break it down to a certain extent. And for me, the biggest question we need to start with is, were we really about to defy fate? Because remember, the whispers appear when someone is trying to change something fundamental in terms of fate and whatnot. And it does not seem, when we were leaving Midgard, that we were doing something that was considerably different than what we were doing in the OG, for example, right? Then we could talk about other steps like the trigger to all of it, which is probably Sephiroth appearing. The Zack memory, which could also be considered as a trigger because it really happens around more or less the same period. A new world being created. We have some spicy quotes when it comes to that in this stream. Did we really abandon the OG future, which is probably the most spicy of all questions? What the Harbinger represents and what the section really taught us about the story. Now, we will not follow this outline, guys. This is not a seminar or whatever. This is just really to set the stage in terms of how I personally imagine what are the questions that we need to make sure we tackle as much as possible if we really want to say that we are trying to analyze this section. Hasho says, for one, Sephiroth has shown his handsome mug multiple times. What do you mean by his handsome mug? Yeah, Sephiroth does show up quite a few times, but I don't necessarily understand that as him as major deviations already, right? Because they also said that they could not start the game without showing Sephiroth, right?
Yeah, and I think that there's a narrative reason. It's just not, oh, let me just put them in there. There's definitely a narrative reason that in the third game, once the whole story is revealed, I think people will understand why you see him a lot more than you did in the original.
Yeah, and not to go too much on a tangent, I try to not to do this as much as possible, but we also have to remember that if you see Sephiroth from the outside, if you are not within Cloud's mind, it might seem to you that Sephiroth just appears whenever Cloud sees him or speaks about him, and then all of a sudden we see him. Like what happens in the OG is that we only hear about him and then he appears afterwards. However, if you were to put yourself in Cloud's shoes, it is very possible that he was seeing Sephiroth much more frequently. It's not something that he was comfortable discussing with the rest of the party, because there are a lot of things that he's not comfortable discussing with the rest of the party, even in Remake. And I believe that if Sephiroth was to really exert the amount of influence and the amount of manipulation that he really does over Cloud in the OG, then he must be showing up to him on a daily basis. Cloud must be obsessed with Sephiroth. And I feel like in the Midgar portion, which makes sense because the OG was not supposed to have the full story told within the Remake portion, which is the Midgar segment, I feel like in the OG it's not expanded on. But if you imagine it in Remake, it's definitely much better.
Yeah, and again, going based on what you're talking about, I think the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that the game is telling us a story.
Yeah.
But it may not be telling you the truth at every point of the story. Because if you go back and play the original, and you play before, how you defeat one enemy, you get to level 7, 7, and then it asks you to put your character name for Cloud.
Yeah.
But the name that's there by default is ex-soldier.
Yeah.
Okay, we know he was not in Soldier. That's what I'm talking about, is that I think that's something that we kind of forget.
Yeah.
The game is telling us a story, but they're trying to build a mystery too. So let's not forget that.
It's like almost as a thought experiment. Let's try to imagine that we are new players experiencing the story. We really need to do that at times.
Right. And it needs to be, and again, they have said that you will not need to play the original to understand the remake. And I believe that because based on your wife's experiences, she already knows more about this point in the OG story than we did when I played the original back when I was 18.
Yeah. I can guarantee you that my wife knows a lot about a lot of topics in life than I do in general.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I firmly believe that when we break it down, when we get to the end, I think people will understand that, again, this is a Final Fantasy VII story from beginning to finish. It's just that, again, they're trying to build a mystery, and a lot of people are when they come up with theories, we tend to overlook that part of it, that they're trying to, just because the game tells us something doesn't mean it's true. Or because deceptions comes in many forms: red herrings, misdirects, outright lies. Final Fantasy VII had all of these in the story, the original. So why wouldn't it be true for the remake?
It's nothing new.
No, it's nothing new. It's Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and And you know, I do want to be careful with this because we're also not going to the. So one of the objectives of this stream, which we might be doing indirectly, but not to the extent that we would want ultimately, is that, so we might have to do it in another stream or in another format, but there has been this I'm not going to say mischaracterization because I don't want to make it polemic, guys. We're just talking about freaking theories, okay? I'm not going after anyone here. I'm just really literally talking about theories. It's crazy that you have to say this these days before saying stuff. But anyways, there has been a train of thought saying, oh, you're saying it's all in Cloud's head, to very much all of the theories that are talking about red herrings and whatnot. And I do feel that that is kind of making it way too simplistic compared to what the perspective is of those who are trying to present a different perspective to the ones who are saying that it's a sequel, or that there are just way too many new differences that were not there in the OG, right? So it is not necessarily all in Cloud's head. However, what some of us are saying, and what Bunke and I here definitely believe in, is that his perspective can help you understand, like the distortion in his perspective can help you understand a lot of the mysteries. And we will start with the Singularity because it has a lot of that, right?
Yeah, and I think that again, I want to make this clear, and I prepared this statement here. Is no, I do not believe that this is taking place all in Cloud's
Yeah.
head. This is all real. It's in the live stream. So this is all real. The stakes are real. However, for us to understand the story, we must interpret it as if it's a dream. But it is not a dream. It is real. This is all happening in the live stream. But again, we can't take everything that we're seeing so literal. And that's what I've been on the journey I've been on for the last 2 years. And once we look at things in a more symbolic way, that's when things start making more sense.
Absolutely. And you know what's great is that with from the chat, we already have a couple of questions which I think are great conversation starters. We will obviously analyze the whole section. But for example, Husho says, how do you rationalize Cloud having future flashbacks of Aerith's death as early as Midgar if this isn't the sequel? Well, I could start with the fact that as soon as you understand that the live stream is involved, because remember, Sephiroth is supposed to be dead, right? If Sephiroth is supposed to be dead, then potentially the only way he is able to interfere with reality is through the live stream, because Sephiroth is literally drenched in a big convergence of Mako in the planet. And he has access to the live stream, so he can literally travel through it and exert his will, and Jenova can also manipulate people and whatnot. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen in the live stream. So as soon as you understand that the live stream is something that does not have time or space as a constraint as opposed to the physical world, it becomes very different. Imagine that you have one layer, which is the surface reality, and you have an underneath layer, which is disconnected from it. However, regardless of how long you live, yeah, Lucrezia had the same future visions, absolutely. Regardless of which era you were born in, your memories eventually return to that underlying layer. So if by magic you were able to access that underlying layer and you were able to have some sort of superpower that allows you to read whatever is happening there, you could potentially see the memories of those who have not died yet, who are on the surface in 5,000 years, but you could have access to it, and it can be used in different ways. And I believe that the white materia, the ancients and the white materia, have used this a lot, because there is something that Fungi Film Reviews, for example, asks, which is, how did they forge the white materia if they didn't know what meteor is to begin with? They must have had some sort of future knowledge for them to be able to forge something that is supposed to defy the black materia. I don't know, Bunke, if you rationalize it differently, but that's how I think about it.
I rationalize it in two ways. One is I'll give you the more simpler explanation as to what's going on. To Hashu's point, he was asking about how could it be having future flashbacks of Aerith's death. What if Remake is taking place during OG, but after Aerith's death?
Yeah, for example.
Then it wouldn't actually, it wouldn't be the future. They're looking at the past.
Right.
Same thing with the Sector 7 vision. That might not have been the future. That was the past. So So it really, again, it depends on what your context is. And when it comes to the live stream, it's one way that I'm seeing with the Ever Crisis update, the 2.5 year update, that when it talks about the future, it discusses it in the context of possibilities. They may not be future memories, as in, how could, of course, that conundrum is, how can you have a memory of something that hasn't happened yet? But these are future possibilities that the planet has based on what has happened in the past and the present, and this what could happen as a result. And in Remake, we've seen two possibilities. We've seen the OG ending, and we also see in the VR room, we saw a future where Cloud does not recover, meteor impacts the planet, there is no live stream, there is no Holy, Tifa and Barrett are dead, and basically the world is about to be destroyed. So really, the game has already shown us two possible futures, and for me, all it tells me is that the ending to the OG was not something that was always guaranteed.
Exactly. Thank you so much for phrasing it that way. Yes.
Yeah, and so to me, that's how I kind of look at the future. I look at it as something where there are possibilities based on what's going on, and this is what could happen as a result.
There is a bit of a bias in the logic that when we consider the OG the past, because we forget that the outcome is not decided yet. If you consider that the outcome has already happened and it's the OG, then yes, by all means, you will think about it differently. But if you consider that the OG is essentially the synthesis of everything that happened, the OG is the result of all these live stream shenanigans. It has not been presented that way in the OG. No one is saying that. No one is saying that all of this kind of weird stuff was, the whispers were not in the OG. We had elements which you could be adjacent to the whispers, like the copies, for example, the robed guys, right? But you could still reconcile that with the fact that what ends up being the synthesis of all the planet crisis and everything happening is essentially the end of the OG. If you think about it this way, it becomes a bit easier because the constraints that you have in terms of where the OG is taking place relative to Remake almost fall away, and you don't need to kind of place one after the other. They imagine them running in parallel. Imagine that the OG is the physical realm and that the Remake is the live stream within the same period. Just imagine it like this, and I think it becomes easier. And trying to catch up a bit more on chat, because it's been how long? It's been 30 minutes. We haven't yet started, but it's good. I think that this touches on a lot of things that we will want to discuss. Lucrezia does have the same visions. I totally agree. Reservoir of memories of the collective. Exactly, Hasho. So something that includes any memory that has existed, exists, or will ever exist. Gilbert says he's dead at the end of the OG, but he's in the north in Remake, and Sephiroth isn't dead. He's in multiple places. Yes, but I do believe that the consensus was that this is very spoilery, because I know that a lot of what we say here is spoilery, but this one even more so. But at the end of the Nibelheim event, let's put it that way, Sephiroth is kind of understood to be dead. However, if you play the remake, or if you haven't finished the OG yet, it does seem as though there is ambiguity, but I think it's very clear once you finish the game that he was dead. He was able to do things. Actually, in the OG, we were discussing this yesterday, there is almost no point in time where you see the real Sephiroth physically alive. Everything he does it from the Northern Crater through the live stream. And so now, Remake is essentially showing you how that was happening. The white materia causes those visions. Yes, Legendary, great to see you here. Enjoy the chats on YouTube and on Twitter too.
Yeah, it's like the analogy that you gave about a trip from London to New York, and OG, you on the boat taking that trip, and Remake is doing it underwater, under the Atlantic Ocean.
Exactly.
Same trip, but very, very, very different experiences.
Exactly. Or like, rather than flying west, you're flying east all around the globe. You will have to go through Asia. You will have to go through the rest of Europe. You'll have to go through the entire United States before you actually reach New York, if you're going from London to New York. Whereas the OG was essentially a direct flight from London to New York, right? This is, one of the analogies we had. And the water one is really one that I love, because it's very much consistent with the nature of the live stream as well, right?
Right, because live stream, we've always imagined that in a context of water, stream,
exactly.
river. It's all They use very, very similar language. I think that one other thing that I forgot to mention was as a respects to time. Remember that in the original OG, there is the time master. Remember that room where the clock
in
is,
the Temple of the Ancients.
but yeah, and remember all the paths were broken.
Yeah.
You couldn't really use it, but but basically the Cetra had an apparatus where they were able. Now, I don't believe they were actually time traveling, but I do believe that they used it to glean at future possibilities, and that's probably how they saw meteors.
I think this is, I think that's a fair assumption, because we always kind of, it's a bit confusing what the Cetra were able or not able to do, right? And we always try to understand essentially what is the level of interference that they have. And I think just glancing at future possibilities and what happened in the past is a pretty good way of labeling it, right?
Right. And I mean, and again, I think that us playing the game, playing the original, it is an advantage and a disadvantage. It's because the thing about it is that the game knows that you played the original, and it will use that against you. And that's probably the biggest tip I will give to all of us. Remember, they know that you know the ending.
Yes. It's meta commentary. This is meta commentary. So the events, excuse me, the events are for the characters. The things happening in game are for the characters. The reason why it's framed this way is the meta commentary itself. So the answer to why is it being done this way is meta commentary. However, why the party fights the Harbinger should make sense for the characters before being meta commentary for the players. This is what I try to explain, is that yes, this could be like more of an like Easter egg on steroids, let's call it that way, but it still has to make sense for characters. This is the biggest and most important thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was it. But yeah, I think that again, if you keep that in mind, it keeps you from overreaching. And it's one of the things that you've helped me realize is that we need to understand, the characters need to understand what's going on in front of them. I mean, because meta commentary doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
And so and by extension, it wouldn't mean anything to new players either. So you still have to have a narrative, a story to tell, and it can't be 100% meta commentary.
That's exactly it. So let's make this a bit more collaborative, guys, because we don't want neither Bunkai or myself want to sit down here and just try to be saying the exact same thing for 2-3 hours. But I would love to get some input from the chat in terms of some of the questions we will be asking, right? Like, for example, the first one is, okay, remember what I said in this point here. Were we really about to defy fate? So what I want you to do, guys, and let me know in the comments what you think, or in the chat what you think. At this point in time, right before, what triggers the Singularity? What event of defying fate was the trigger to the Singularity? So, first of all, what is the... I can answer this because it's very straightforward. What is the event that triggers all of this? It's clearly this, right? Let's go back a couple of frames. And let's have a little bit of sound. Not too much. This, right? So this is the trigger to the entire ending of Remake. This is the trigger to whatever crazy stuff happens in Chapter 18, right? The question is, how does it get here? How were we able to get to this point if the Whispers are only intervening? Is Sephiroth embodying the Whispers who wants to stop us from defying fate? Or does Sephiroth actually want to break that hold of the Whispers? And if so, what was it as characters that they were doing that was already breaking fate? Because, okay, I don't want to beg the question, but you guys let me know what you think about this, okay? Let me know what you think. And Bunkai, you could start maybe with giving me your opinion about what you think. Were we really about to defy fate or not?
So, by the way, did not Red 13 ask that very question?
Yes.
Is it our fate to defy fate.
Yes.
And then a lot of people are taking what he said in the Singularity as gospel. The man told you he's not even
He doesn't know.
about right. What path that that they're taking is the right path, and what they're seeing is it really what's really going on. So that should be a clue right then and there. But one thing about that particular, I love that you froze it there. Did anyone notice that he sees Sephiroth there, but then if you keep on playing it, he disappears. Then you see Sephiroth descending from above. Why did they do that? That's a good.
That is a great question.
That's something that should be asked.
Why does he appear and then disappear and then appear again? So I have a bit of an answer, a bit of an idea of an answer, just to, piggyback on what you just said about Red 13. Toriyama himself, this is an interview from Toriyama from the remake Ultimania, where he says, yeah, he gets some knowledge due to coming into contact with Aerith, blah, blah, blah. Red 13 is the only one able to see that knowledge because his species lives for so long. So he will be alive. That knowledge is relevant to him because he will be alive in 500 years' time. However, he also cannot see clearly. And he's unable to absorb all of that clearly. Do you see what he's trying to emphasize here? There is already some subtext from Toriyama telling you, yes, he does see things, but you got to keep in mind that there is a vast amount of information. So he might be getting visions, but without context. Red 13 running in the middle of nowhere does not necessarily mean that this is a bad or a good ending. We are just setting the expectations here, guys, right? We are not starting to interpret yet.
And let's not forget, he did not see the entire vision.
Yes. That's the easiest way, the simplest way of putting it. He didn't see everything.
Right. So he saw his cubs running, and then it cuts off. And then something that I pointed out on X a couple of weeks ago is that after the vision concludes, you see the camera focused on Cloud, not Red 13.
And even before we zoom in on Cloud, not Red 13.
Exactly. But we zoom in on Cloud, not on Red 13. So I think that we have to allow for the possibility that they did a sleight of hand here.
Absolutely.
What we saw is probably not what Red 13 saw.
I agree.
Because it wouldn't make sense. Why would the sight of him seeing cubs make it so he would say an ominous statement as in a glimpse of tomorrow if we fail here today? Why would that doesn't matter?
Bros jump into conclusions if that's the case.
Right. And again, the developers know, the game knows that we know the ending. This is how they're using it, how they're weaponizing it against us. We're basically Cloud.
Yes.
Where we're being manipulated by being shown certain things, and they know what conclusion that we will reach based on what we see, and the developers have the upper hand here because they can see what we will naturally conclude, and they will continue feeding that until they raise the curtains and show you what really happened.
This is exactly it. And some of the commentary, I believe, from the devs is, remember that there is ambiguity about the ending, whether it's good or bad. There was some sort, I think it's been confirmed, obviously, a couple of times, that it is supposed to embody a good ending with humanity having just moved away from Mako and just found a way to live with nature. That's why you see the smoke, and that's why you hear the children laughing in the ending, for example. But they know also that say this is how they are using the players in the stories, that they know that there is some ambiguity over that. So they said, you know what? Let's include that as an ambiguity moment for the characters themselves. Let's give them the impression that this could be either good or bad. And I think this is how they're using this. This is meta, right? I can get behind this being meta. But the entire story being built around this is just for you, the player who knows the OG, that is what I can't get behind personally.
I agree. I think because at the end of the day, as I said at the outset, this is still Final Fantasy VII, and this is still going to change. This is still going to tell the same story. In fact, you can pull up Rebirth's trailer.
Yeah.
There's nothing in Rebirth that really couldn't have been applied to the OG. I mean, you've seen flashes of Meteor. You see Sephiroth talking about, or you see Sephiroth talking about ruling Genova at his side. All of that is in the OG.
Absolutely. Exactly. And Genova and Sephiroth's will, as I believe, is linked to that. And what Mario said here is very relevant to this. So, Mario, thank you so much for bringing that up, because I fully agree on the premise. We will just have to go through the whole thing before reaching that conclusion, so we will come back to it. But you're bringing a very good point in the sense that Genova's connection with Sephiroth, I don't necessarily think that it's him being free from Jenova, but there is something about Jenova controlling things and the whole situation lead into Sephiroth controlling things that happened. We switched villains in a way. We switched antagonists. You could say that the antagonist was Jenova, and that Sephiroth was like, not on my watch. I will show up and take over because my goal is more righteous and want to save the planet by trapping everyone in an eternal dream and whatever, right? Very Final Fantasy X-ish.
It's another sleight of hand because we are basically, to your point, we actually are seeing two Sephiroths at play here. Although, but by playing the game, you wouldn't know that. You're not supposed to know that. And again, that's part of my theory as well, because the Sephiroth that you fight in the Singularity is not the same Sephiroth that you see at the Edge of Creation. Two different.
It does seem like it. And we'll get to that. So let's start with, okay, the question is that why was all of this triggered? And were we about to defy fate? So I haven't seen any big answers to it. In my opinion, I don't think we were about to defy fate. It was kind of a rhetorical question because we were about to leave Midgar, which is the exact same thing that we do in DOG. I've read online that some people said that the Whispers wanted us to not have knowledge about the Whispers, and that in itself is the deviation from DOG that they were trying to undo. First of all, I don't know if we can have evidence for that. But the second thing as well is that, well, turns out we still have memories. That the characters still have memories of the Wall of Whispers in the Expressway, even in Rebirth. They remember it. They don't reference the Harbinger, which is a great talking point. We'll get to that too. But they reference fighting the Whispers. And it does seem that at the very least, whatever the Whispers were trying to achieve at the very least did not work. But I would go the extra mile and suggest that maybe that's not what was at play here, because why would Sephiroth be even involved if we were just about to break fate? And the Whispers, it would have been a problem between us and the Whispers. Why is Sephiroth involved? Let me just dumb it down to this level, because I know it's kind of weird to ask this question now. But if it was just about defying fate, why is Sephiroth showing up? And why is the Harbinger Jenova coded, obviously? So for me, the answer is we were not about to defy fate. Bunke, I know you agree, but I'm not sure if you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, I think that, again, one thing that, again, is kind of easy to miss. When we watch the entire sequence, the Whispers aren't under his control. In fact, the Whispers blocked their path. Yeah. They actually surrounded him and the party on the Expressway, and he cuts through them. So those Whispers are not on Sephiroth's side. I think that that's something that should be very revealing if you really think about it.
And in some of the text that kind of the voice scripts from the Material Ultimania Plus, it says that Aerith also senses that this Sephiroth is different from the one that they met in the Shinra building, and you can see from her dialogue that she's very much. You're wrong. She's like very serious. She's very resilient in her confrontation with him, and she takes the lead. She takes charge, and I don't think we talk about this enough. Aerith all throughout Remake was like, let's do this, let's do that. She was kind of, just happy to be around. But whenever the real Sephiroth shows up, she's much more serious, and she's ready to end it all right there. And she asks for help from the party, obviously. Certain elements just happen to have future knowledge. Totally. I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and I think that, again, I think that what I may be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I need to set the deck here. I believe that Final Fantasy VII Remake, if you ask me to boil down to one sentence what the story is about, besides the original Final Fantasy VII story that's encapsulated here, is that it's a battleground over Cloud's mind. Yeah. Because he is the linchpin that either saves the planet or destroys the planet. He's the one that handed the black materia over and started this all. So he's going to be the one that has to save it.
Absolutely. And this is not only apparent if you know the OG, obviously, but even within Remake, you can see the importance of Cloud. Cloud is important simply because Sephiroth has access to him, which means he also has access to Sephiroth. It's kind of like an Harry Potter situation going on, which, without spoilers, obviously. the protagonist having a sort of link with the antagonist is both a weakness, but also a big opportunity. And I feel that in part 3, we will see how much of an opportunity it is, because Cloud literally knows what Sephiroth wants to do, and he feels what Sephiroth's intentions are. So if he develops enough strength to be able to stand up to him and to resist the manipulation and whatever, this is huge potential for Cloud to essentially beat him and defeat him, for good. So if we can, let's move on in terms of the Singularity sequence so that we start analyzing it a bit. So my first thought here is, as you said, Bunke, like, why does Sephiroth first of all appear here? My understanding is that no one else sees Sephiroth. I know that we don't zoom in on them at the moment Sephiroth appears, but my understanding from because listen, scenes are meant to convey something. If they wanted to show you that the rest of the party saw Sephiroth, they would have. For me, this whole sequence is kind of awkward. You know why? I question whether this is the moment Cloud's perception has been broken out from the rest of the party. This is the moment that his perception took a path and the rest of the party took another path. In terms of perception, we're not talking about physically taking a path. We're talking about perception, a state of mind. And the reason I say that is the following. Look at this. We see Sephiroth, right? These guys, it seems as though Tifa here driving stops just because Cloud stopped, right? And what's going to happen afterwards? We realize he's not there. So chances are the party, at no point did they see Sephiroth here, right? So shouldn't the next question be, Cloud, what's going on?
Yeah, the first question should be, why did you stop here? Why didn't you just keep on going? I mean, you could have just kept on driving right through there and be out. But obviously he stops because of what he sees. And then if you really think about it, Tifa had to nail the brakes so she doesn't rear end Cloud, because she was expecting him to stop right then and there for seemingly no reason.
This is why I believe that this might be the moment where Cloud... It's possible that, listen, when we get the reveal and we get to the real sequence of events, it's possible that they show us this again and they tell us, you know what? The party was talking to Cloud. He was just not hearing them. And what you were playing is you seeing what Cloud was seeing. He was not hearing the party because his mind went totally into Sephiroth pursuit mode.
Steve, wait a minute. I'm just something to just, that image that you got right there. It's nighttime. That looks like a tear.
Yeah, I don't want to open that can of worms because that is a huge...
Saying, that's the first thing I just noticed that now, because I never know, because it's nighttime, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at that and they're like, wait a minute.
Let's see if we have a better angle.
Okay, that's fine. That's all fine. That looks good.
You're right. Behind them, it's all nighttime. But you know what? Let me add something to this, because where Zack is, it's daytime. And Zack is supposed to be on the other side of the expressway.
Right.
So technically, if you could go and... Well, even here, we still don't see daytime. If you go and you jump over this and you teleport... Not teleport, but like if you really have just a way to fly over the expressway and get to the edge of Midgar, you would find Zack standing in daytime. How does that make sense? And what is the moment it starts being... Right, we see the horizon there, right? You can see it there. Right here was when it starts. It does look like a bit of a tear. I think we might need more evidence, but you could think at the very least about why it's daytime. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's possible this is dusk.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting though, because when you look at it all the way up until that point, it was not so pronounced. If it was there, it's not nearly as pronounced as it was just in that shot. I was just observation.
You could say it's dusk. There is an argument to be made. But what really bothers me with this is Zack standing. Zack looking at Midgar being enveloped by whispers, just like the party is, but being in a completely different time zone than the rest of the party.
Right. And you're going to get to it, but when you walk through, it's not like they keep on going. Yeah. It's a mirrored approach. They're walking in outside of Midgar, and they're not going to walk in. What you're about to show that. So I won't spoil it.
And one of the other things that I wanted to bring up is the feather disappears. right? It's gonna
Yes.
just fade away. We have seen the feather a couple of times up to this point. We saw it as early as chapter 1 in the reactor, and I think it had disappeared there too. And it's gonna disappear when he holds it at the end in the final cutscene right before they leave Midgar. And we saw the feather disappear in the trial, for example, which we would call something closer to a dream. I believe that and we see it in the Shinra building. However, in the Shinra building, it does not disappear. So when he's KO, they then get up in Aerith's room, and then they go into the elevator. And as soon as the elevator is about to close, because that's what he thought was Genova's pod when he fainted before, we also see that there is a feather falling, but this time it does not fade away. So the difference between the feather fading away and not fading away is the first thing that raised the alarm for me. And I'm like, why is there a differentiation to begin with? I don't know whether we can draw a pattern. And if you remember, Bunke, we've spoken a lot about this on Discord, right? I don't think we can draw a pattern yet, but there is a differentiation to begin with. Why is the feather disappearing in majority of scenes, but in one scene when they are in the Shinra building, it's not disappearing? Obviously, I don't know if we have the answer, but just want to bring it up.
Yeah, I think that the one difference though is that the feather that doesn't disappear in the drum, but Sephiroth does appear there, but that was through, he's obviously one of the clones that broke Genova out of it. Yes. All the other times when we see the feather disappear, it's usually when Cloud and only Cloud sees Sephiroth. But because what we're about to also, we're going to see a whole bunch of feathers here in a second, because when the true Sephiroth, when the other Sephiroth appears here and descends from the sky, you see a whole bunch of feathers falling, and they're not all disappearing.
And they don't disappear, yeah. I mean, we don't see them going into the ground, but the implication is that they don't necessarily disappear, yeah.
Right. So I think that there might be, again, I think it's an indicator of which Sephiroth we're seeing.
Now, there is a pattern. I'm not sure if you spotted that too, but there is a pattern for Sephiroth to appear, which is that first he appears only to Cloud. And then as soon as Cloud believes that Sephiroth is there, this is how Sephiroth is able to come back and to appear to everyone. I think we've spotted this pattern. So the first time, I believe, might have been the drum, as you said. Because at the beginning, so the Ultimania is very clear on the fact that at the beginning, no one else sees Sephiroth. And, you know, even Tifa, she only sees Sephiroth at the moment she touches Cloud. It seems that either Cloud believing enough in Sephiroth literally gives him a way to be able to manifest physically, if this is the physical world, which is another can of worms that we might open later on in the stream. That's the first thing. Or there is some sort of pattern or mechanism that Sephiroth is using in order to appear. And the second time we see it is here. So first of all, only Cloud sees Sephiroth. And as soon as he's pursuing him, that's when the real Sephiroth... So this, Bunke, this might be an answer to the question we asked earlier of why does Sephiroth first appear like this to Cloud and then descend?
Right. Right, because the game is showing you, and it's not obvious, but the game is showing you that you're looking at two different Sephiroths.
Exactly.
Here.
So this might be just a... This might be just a way to stop him and to stop them. But anyway,
by the way, I just want to point it out there is that it's something, a little bit of indicator in the game. You know, it shows him if you go back just a few frames, it's showing Cloud. You see the indication that the party, that he's alone. It says Tifa and Barrett has left the party. Yes. And now it comes back in, but again, I think that's actually a little bit relevant to what we're just talking about.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that this is the moment where Cloud's perception was like, he might have been still physically with them, but his mind was now clouded with whatever was being shown to him. Now, it doesn't mean that the dialogues that happened afterwards did not happen in any fashion, that they're all in his head. Again, I think that this is a good example to kind of emphasize this. Landy, my friend, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to have you lurking. I mean, it's great to have you on the stream. We're chatting about the Singularity. Very spicy stuff. Thank you so much for the super chat and for tuning in. But what we were saying is that it shows you that it's not all in his head, but there is some sort of Sephiroth's ability to change reality, or Genova, let's call it that way. Genova's ability to change reality based on what Cloud believes. So as soon as Cloud believes that Sephiroth is there, all of a sudden, he leaves the party, why do they not ask him, hey, what's going on? Left the party, as you said. The turning point. At this moment, Cloud is literally compelled to go. At this moment, there really has to be a conversation of, hey, why are we stopping here and what's going on? But there is not. So either he didn't hear, or they also saw Sephiroth, but the evidence is that it seemed that they did not see Sephiroth. It's very hard to answer.
Correct.
So we move on a bit.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, yeah, it's definitely there, and we'll get to it probably in another stream. But in Rebirth, there is another example how a gameplay feature, might actually have story implications, especially concerning Zack.
Yes, I agree. So we go into the closer the closer we get to the edge, the more the horizon opens up. So again, we might, this is probably not a tear, as we said, right? But there is still the question of, why is Zack in a different time zone the rest of the party? Right, we keep going. So there you go. So these feathers seem to be more real than the ones we had before. Would we agree on that?
Yes.
I think that's what we prefaced with. And so if you look at Sephiroth's descending here, this is one of, so I'm not gonna pretend that I'm the one who found this, but Sleepy's idea or find was absolutely amazing in this, because he realized that this memory is extremely similar to Zack looking at Angeal descending in Crisis Core. And at that moment, Angeal asks for his help. How symbolic is it that Sephiroth and Jenova would be able to use that memory from Cloud's unconscious that is essentially coming from Zack, and to twist it and to essentially just recycle the memory and show him Sephiroth instead descending to ask for his help? Because at the end of the day, what the Ultimania says is that Sephiroth wants to take Cloud beyond the threshold to show him the future of the planet.
Yeah.
And it might take us too long to go and find that scene, but I think if you guys go to Crisis Core and you look at the portions where Zack is in the Expressway, because he also leaves Midgar and comes back to Midgar through the Expressway, you will see Angeal descending in the literal exact same way. And once again, total credit to Sleep Easy for spotting these things, because he has an eye attention to detail that is absolutely amazing. So he appears, and then the feathers, you see the feathers are not really disappearing, or are they? Let's see. We don't really get a confirmation. So
no, we don't get a hard confirmation. But I would feel like that if they really wanted to show it disappearing, they could have just zoomed in on the ground. They could have just drew that in, but they don't. And I think I think it's also the fact that there are many of them instead of just one single feather.
Exactly. And this makes you question. I think it's just comes back to the pattern that Sephiroth is able to manifest physically as soon as Cloud sees him in first and believes that he is there. It seems that this is a rule that we can potentially work with for other cutscenes. So he appears, and at this moment, what really happens? So the reason why Barrett says, okay, asshole, let's blah, blah, blah. Again, localization, unfortunately, is kind of a bit of a challenge, but we will not go in that direction. In Japanese, what he really says is, hey, you, in the Shinra building, and then he doesn't finish the sentence, obviously. So what Barrett really says here is, this is almost an acknowledgement that Sephiroth attacked him, but obviously it's still not really addressed. This is a clever way by the game to tell you, okay, Barrett might remember, but we still have the question as to why the party doesn't talk about Barrett's death, but that's a completely different story, obviously. Now, this is where Aerith is going to take charge. Right?
Don't. And you're wrong.
The music.
Those who look with clouded eyes see nothing but shadow.
Okay, yeah, your riddles and whatnot, Sephiroth. Thank you again for not making any sense. But with Aerith, the reason she takes charge, this is where the Ultimania says, Aerith recognizes that this Sephiroth is different from the one that they were fighting in the Shinra building. And for this, I feel like it's a good idea to bring up some of the voice recording script from the Material Ultimania Plus to tell you exactly what it said. So if you look at Destiny's Crossroads here, what it says is that Sephiroth gently lands with a faint... Let me fix the zoom, by the way. Oh, where is the zoom? Here is the zoom. Sephiroth gently lands with a faint thump not far away. Cloud turns his head toward him. Sephiroth doesn't disappear this time, and Cloud finally stands face to face with him. You see how they, even in the voice script, they emphasize the fact that he doesn't disappear.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. They acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
And look at the translation. You son of a bitch, time to pay you back for... This is much clearer that Barrett is referring to what happened in the Shinra building. Whereas, hey, asshole is kind of just too vague. But anyways. Aerith holds out an arm to stop Barrett from moving closer. Aerith, this is not right. Aerith is the only one...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm reading this for the first time because I never read this before. That's completely different than what she says. Right? And she says that you're wrong. That's not the same thing as saying this isn't right. That's saying he's not supposed to appear
exactly.
here.
She knows something.
Oh my gosh.
She knows something's up.
Yeah.
She's like, this isn't right. And look at the commentary right afterwards. Aerith is the only one who realizes this Sephiroth is different from the one they encountered in the Shinra building. This might be the first time, because Cloud tells Aerith in chapter... Chapter 8 in Sector 5. He tells her, yeah, do you know Sephiroth? She tells him, yeah, the war hero. She tells him he's dead. He tells her, no, but I feel like he's still around. And obviously there's a weird zoom on her mouth as she says, yeah, right. It was a bit kind of suspicious. But anyways, she kind of discards Sephiroth conversations almost all the time. But this time she's like, no, this isn't right. This might actually be the guy himself. The next moment, Red 13 lets out a growl. Obviously, we saw that as if perceiving something by scent. The others shrink back as well, blah, 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 blah. The transcendent aura emanating from Sephiroth. Of course it was. And that's when Aerith says, you're not right. So, again, yeah, this isn't right. You're not right is kind of different from you're wrong. Everything about you is wrong. So just as a heads up, this is translated by our good friend Turquoise Hammer. So obviously, I know that a lot of you already know his content, and our friends at the Shinra Archaeology Department is the full name. I don't want to mess up the name, but the Shinra Archaeology team, obviously, who do a lot of translations, and they have translated a while ago the Ultimania material, Ultimania Plus. So this could be different from the Japanese in a way, but I think it's as good of a version as we have today, because this is not available in officially translated English versions, and so it's the best we have for now. Now look at what Sephiroth is going to say afterwards. Those whose eyes are clouded by sentiment see nothing of what's before them. What this sets up, so what these lines of dialogue set up, is the crisis between Aerith and Sephiroth and their totally opposed worldview. And that's where she says, nothing about you is right. The others are having trouble following the pair's conversation. Sephiroth turns his gaze to Cloud. What is happening here is that the two are... So the two might be seeing the same thing, which is the planet is bound to die because humans are draining the Mako from it. But the way they see, the way forward for them is completely different. And that's why Sephiroth tells her, you are clouded by sentimentality or by sentiment. Now, what could it mean that Sephiroth says you are clouded by sentimentality? It's because Aerith cherishes life, guys. Aerith cherishes life and cherishes the cycle of life and death. Aerith also wants to save the planet and her loved ones, but she does not want to do that at the expense of everyone who has lived or will ever live on the planet. On the flip side, Sephiroth tells her, your eyes are clouded by sentimentality, because for him, as long as the planet is saved, nothing else matters. And Aerith is actually going to explain this in detail, verbatim, in the next cutscenes. Yeah, we'll get to that too. Life cycles around the planet.
Oh, I love that saying. Because again, that's way more clear. Life cycles around the planet. Yet when the planet comes to an end, so too will that life. He's basically saying,
yes.
Hey, when the planet goes, everything goes with it. Now, interesting enough, that's a great precursor, because if you were to just fast forward to the edge of creation, this conversation makes total sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Everything.
Exactly. Thank you so much for pointing this. We will go back to all the cutscenes, guys. Don't worry. But when Sephiroth looks at this nebula here and says,
Our world will become a part of
yes, one day,
one day,
but I will not end, nor will I have you end.
Nor will I have you.
What is this, right? This is relevant to what we're seeing. Sephiroth shows Cloud the future. He tells him the planet will become part of that. Now, what is that? Let me guys tell you what that is. Okay. And sorry, I did not prepare this specific segment because I was not thinking that we will be referencing it. But let me show you that. I know, Dirge of Servers. I know. The majority of people hate this game. Oops. Sorry for the microphone shenanigans. Hopefully I can find the segment right away. Yes, Dirge of Cerberus references something extremely similar to this. Lucrezia, this is the whole game, right? No, it's way before. Actually, they also have an assault on Midgar. There you go. This is the one. Look at this, guys. Blah, 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 blah. What's going on here? Hey, look at this. And look at the dialogue, by the way. Look at what it says. So, this is knowledge that Lucrezia had, which they were able to recover, I believe through Schelke. And it is essentially research that Lucrezia, its memories of, or its archives of Lucrezia's research. And by the time that Deep Ground has this kind of crisis in Midgar and whatnot, the party are in the High Wind and shown, is it the High Wind? In the Shera and shown this kind of stuff.
What the? Are we in?
What?
Just as we return to the planet when our lifelight is faded, the planet returns to the cosmos when her time has come.
This, my friends, this is literally what Sephiroth was looking at. The reason Sephiroth stands there and is like, our planet will become a part of it one day, is because he saw this. At the edge of creation, he saw that the planet's fate, just like humans, is to return to the cosmos. And I can't believe that this is not something that is discussed more around the fandom when it comes to theory crafting.
Anything that has definite shape will one day cease to exist. The same is true for this world. Before she takes her final breath, the pure life streams that flow freely beneath her crust will be brought together into one.
Do you see? The life stream is going to pack up and leave, is essentially it. And so the planet is going to die. Now, the problem with Sephiroth is that he does not want this to happen. He refuses it. He's like, I don't want to cease to exist. And I don't want to erase you either. This is, I believe, Bunke, you let me know if you interpret it the same way. I believe that this is what the game means when it tells you that Sephiroth gets Cloud beyond the threshold to show him the future of the planet.
I think that the statement is true. I agree with the statement where he's talking about our planet will become part of it one day. He is talking about the cosmic life stream, just as you just showed. But I believe that the vision that he's showing Cloud is of Meteor, because he said 7 seconds from the end. He's talking about Meteor. But the one thing that's interesting about this, there's a contradiction here. If this is the same Sephiroth, the other Sephiroth's talking about eternity. Right, he's going to rule eternally. This Sephiroth saying, no, eventually the planet's going to go.
Yeah, but he wants to stop that process.
Right, he wants to. But I won't end. I don't want to end. To your point, I don't want to die. And actually, that's something that's shared between the both of them. They both biggest fear is dying.
Exactly.
They do not want to die.
Exactly. But this is why Aerith telling Sephiroth, hey Sephiroth, how can you want an eternity of loneliness at the edge of creation and rebirth? Makes total sense. This is why when we speak about Sephiroth and Aerith from the OG versus Remake, we're like they are fundamentally different. I don't think they are, because we just presented their worldview, contradictory worldviews, in the sense that both recognize that the planet is going to die. I bet you that Aerith, in some part inside of her, which she might not even be conscious of, understands that the planet's fate is for it to cease to exist, because she's a Cetra. And Sephiroth is traveling the live stream and whatnot. But their approach for the problem is different. Sephiroth is like, I refuse to die. I don't want to die. Because he thinks that the planet is he's the rightful heir to the planet or whatever. Or simply because he refuses to die. So we could analyze versions of Sephiroth all we want, but the finality is the same. He does not want to die. And so his solution is, I'm going to wound the planet so much that the entire live stream is going to converge to the same spot and absorb it, and I'm going to become the planet itself. I'm going to be a god who essentially dictates what happens, and that way I can make sure the planet never dies. But we will get... I don't want to spoil Aerith's dialogue here, because that's exactly how she will show us that she does not agree with his motivations.
I gotta throw a teaser out there. I think the Gi tried something like that, and I don't think it ended up well for them. But we'll get
exactly.
to that at something.
Yeah, and they are not there even like they hate it now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They hate it.
But,
they just want to die.
That's for another time.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Right. So let's look at a couple of scenes before we move forward. So it says Cloud interprets. So here's the thing. Here's why Cloud is important. So he turns to Cloud and he tells him, life circles around the planet, yet when the planet comes to an end, so too will that life. This explains to us why Sephiroth appears in Chapter 2 and tells him that which binds us together will be no more. And he reminds him of his mother. He's like, all of these memories will be lost if the planet dies, right? This is why for him, Cloud is very important, because he's going to be the vessel for what he wants to do. Now, Cloud is... I don't like calling him dumb, or like he has clouded eyes, unfortunately. Cloud does not understand what is going on here. He is important, but he does not yet understand his role in whatever is happening. He interprets this to mean that Sephiroth is aiming to put an end to the planet. You know what's funny? Cloud is right, but his process to come to the conclusion is wrong. That's not what Sephiroth meant. But Cloud ultimately is right, because what Sephiroth meant, he does not realize himself that it means putting an end to the planet. And this is why this is very ironic. It's hilarious. So that...
It is, and I like the word that this is very careful wording. Cloud interprets this to mean that Sephiroth is aiming. In other words, that he's actually to your point, he's misunderstanding what Sephiroth is saying, because he actually wants to save the planet, but obviously the way it's done is unnatural, because all planet, as you just showed, the planet coming to its end over time is natural.
Yes. And should be accepted, and this is what Aerith, I believe's position is.
Right. Nothing's eternal. Nothing's
exactly.
eternal. That's what she says, right?
Nothing lasts forever. Exactly. So this is what we just saw, guys. Okay.
Everything about you is wrong.
And that's where he turns his gaze to Cloud. Now, Cloud is the target of whatever he's going to say next.
All born are bound.
This is the cryptic stuff. Why are we doing this like this in English? We just had life cycles around the planet. Why are we translating this to all are bound to her, guys?
But I notice a pattern here. Is that when they do the English localization, they it's as if they've been told to add ambiguity to
I also think it's intentional. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I am not criticizing the localization team solely here. I am just criticizing the idea of a group of people having a completely different experience to everyone else.
Yeah, and again, because I mean, I'm reading for the people listening right now. I'm reading this for the first time myself. I've actually never seen this, so you're getting my real life reaction to this, and I'm blown away because this is so eye-opening.
Exactly. It's Again, I'm going to try not to make it too much about the translation, but the dialogue in the Ultimania Plus gives a lot of sense to what we just saw, okay? Now, here is where so when you hear should this world be unmade, you could understand that it's one of the worlds we are, like one of the many worlds we have been exposed to in Rebirth, or the planet, but again, it is not one of the worlds. He's not talking about the Beagle world being unmade. So too shall her children. What are children of, children of the planet is essentially everything that is in the planet. But what he really means is when the planet comes to an end, so too will that life. This is just to give you guys a very simple interpretation of what he's saying.
So too shall her children.
The world won't
Obviously, Cloud misunderstands it.
be you.
So what happens here is that before that, the Whispers were already enveloping Midgar, or the Shinra building specifically. Why are the whispers enveloping the Shinra building? What kind of destiny is being defied here?
Even Aerith asked that.
Right?
Remember when they first see
Yes.
it? Actually, the game actually asks that question: why does the whispers envelop the building?
That is a
Because
good question.
it really does. Yeah, it's not very apparent because right now everything is more or less going according to script.
Yeah.
So why did the whispers need to surround the building? What did they? If they're there to stop a crucial event that will disrupt the normal flow of what we interpret as the OG event.
Yes.
What is that? What's going on
Aerith
here?
has intuitions that something's wrong. She does not necessarily know that the whispers are behaving differently. She just feels something is wrong. And I believe this is what you're referring to. She's like, whispers. But she already saw whispers in the Shinra building. This should not be surprising. We literally just had a whole sequence about whispers, and she almost... Tifa saved her from the whispers or whatever happened there. And they saw them when Barrett was revived. They've been seeing whispers all night. Why would she go and say whispers? It's not the first time she's going to see them in the last 30 minutes. But there is something wrong with the whispers being enveloping the building. This is where in the video, in the Sephiroth video, I was saying, I believe that the reunion was about to happen in the Shinra building. I believe that the whispers storming the Shinra building was about enacting the reunion around Jenova already there. Now, we don't know where the clone number 2 is it? The one who ran away with Jenova's body. We don't know where he is because it just falls from the Shinra building. We don't even see whether he's alive or not. Like, what happens to that guy? How is Jenova's where is Jenova's body? Is it also on the Expressway? Is it with Cloud? We don't know where it is. But my understanding is that it's possible that Jenova's body was still close to the Shinra building at that moment, and there was a possibility for the reunion to happen around Jenova's body. This is why the whispers were enveloping it. Okay? Now, obviously, Rufus sees it as well. The funny thing is that Song doesn't see it. And just to give explanation, so what Toriyama says is that Rufus is able to see the whispers because he came into contact with Cloud while fighting him. This is the only reason he's able to see the whispers. He says that Barrett and others see the whispers because they were involved with them when the whispers wanted to make sure that Cloud stayed on course of fate or whatever and went to the Sector 5 bombing mission. This is the kind of stuff where he also says that Cloud only sees the whispers first, not because Aerith touches him, but because he comes into contact with the whispers himself when Aerith gets close to him. This is an immense detail. It's not the fact of simply touching Aerith. It's the fact that she touches him and then the whispers follow and then they touch Cloud, and so that's how he is able to see them finally. Which is, again, it's stuff that is not apparent if you look at it from the story, from the game, but it's good that we have these interviews to confirm this kind of stuff. Right. Sung is not seeing it. So let's go back to what we were seeing. So at this moment, when he says, all are bound to her, blah, 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 the whispers don't like that. So is this the trigger of fate being defied? Why do the whispers react to this? What was Sephiroth's last line?
You will.
Okay, it seems that, and you guys correct me if I'm going on a completely illogical conclusions here. It seems that the whispers react because Cloud wants to end things with Sephiroth. Because there is a fight that was not supposed to happen. Sephiroth is not supposed to die at this moment. This is how I interpret it.
I actually took it as Sephiroth's appearance, period.
Yeah.
Is what's causing this. The very fact that he's there, first of all, he's not supposed to be there. I mean, they and here's the thing though, is that obviously he does not control the whispers here at this point. And remember, where did they all head? You see them leaving the building, and they're all going to encapsulate the party and form a barrier behind Sephiroth so he can't proceed any further.
Exactly. But this is my challenge. This is my problem. Is Sephiroth isn't. This is clearly about the party leaving Midgar or not, I believe. But why would the party be stopped from advancing further outside of Midgar? Is the initial fate for the party to not leave Midgar and to not pursue Sephiroth? Is that what the initial fate for them was? And the fate we ended up with in the OG is what we are shown here. And it goes back to one of the ideas that we were, I think, that by Legendary, who says that the OG is essentially being recontextualized, and you see how we came to the OG rather than this is the OG and we're changing it. Or is it something different? I just still struggle to understand which fate we are defying. It seems as though it is not really a case of we are defying fate, but rather Sephiroth triggers all of this, as you say, Bunke. He appears and he's like, I'm going to change stuff.
Right. And I think that, again, for me, it's a little bit more because I'm looking at it through a symbolic eye. And I am seeing that Sephiroth's consciousness is appearing here. Yeah. And this is not something that is welcome. And I think that the whispers there are forming a barrier not because of the party, because if that was the case, the whispers would have left earlier. But because Sephiroth appeared, that's when the whispers said, "Oh no, you're not supposed to be here." And so the barrier is really because of Sephiroth, not really because of the party. That's how I kind of take it.
I feel like that's a much more logical explanation than the party was about to defy fate, because I don't see what the party was going to do which was fundamentally different than the OG. And by the way,
right, it's pretty much yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, just so that we are not talking, in very abstract terms, this is what literally happens in the OG. I feel like the singularity takes place in this walk, because look, Cloud is walking alone again. Well, what do we do now? He's obsessed with Sephiroth once again. Sephiroth is alive, I have to settle the score. And obviously then we get the whole group conversation of if you need... each one of them basically markets themselves as someone who can help Cloud in his journey. But it starts with Cloud's obsession with Sephiroth. The reason why Cloud says, I need to settle things with Sephiroth is precisely because they heard about him being alive in the Shinra building and they saw the Masamune. In Remake, it is much stronger evidence that Sephiroth is alive because they literally see him and talk to him. But the outcome is the same. I believe that the entire thing is just to give you context around this is why they're resolved to go after Sephiroth, is because of everything they saw in the Singularity. So we could potentially, and by the way, look at the time zone difference is also there in the OG, but that's a different thing. But you could literally just strip down the entire Singularity to it is the moment Cloud, especially Cloud and others, decided to go after Sephiroth. This is what the whole purpose of it was. Now there are technical details that we need to go into as well. Catching up on chat. The whispers being arbiters of fate is fake. Barrett and Tifa try to explain this to the three lab rats. Cloud, Aerith, Red 13. What do you mean by that? And these surrounding the reactor and the whispers following you around. Those things are the Black Light Stream Black, aka Gi. They were trapped by Shinra for selling their souls. Lol, not funny. I mean, listen, all of that is possible. I do feel that with the Gi, I do feel that this is specifically the spirits of the Cetra because we see a lot of imagery that is consistent, right? The ropes and whatnot. Love Seeker says, I see you talking more FF. We're talking FF all day, every day, my friend. This is what we do all the time. And not only FF, we talk crazy theory crafting in FF. That's all. FF7.
Listen.
Okay, I want you guys to listen. Yes, he says listen, but listen for real. Because you will literally hear screams. You hear them? You can hear screams.
Destiny comes.
Okay, what happened here?
Destiny comes.
Where is the camera pointed? That's the first question I want to ask is, where is the camera pointed on? Right
exactly.
there, you got it right there, Steve. Is Cloud is focused on Cloud, and what is the literal, and then we see the particle effects, the rainbow particle effects.
These shards and these streams, let's call it that way, are the exact same things that we will see coming out of the Harbinger later. It's green and purple and white, and it comes out of it. It embodies, it traps memories, and then when you defeat it, you have memories coming out of the Harbinger. Now, those memories are still not consolidated here. They are still loose, let's call it that way. But where we are zooming in is almost to show us that this memory that we're about to see is coming from this guy, not this guy. This guy doesn't remember. This guy instead. This is how I interpret it.
By the way, another, you hear the screams, right? These are all souls in pain.
Yes.
So let's go to where Cloud feels the most pain.
Absolutely.
That he can, going, and we're about to get to. I'm not going to spoil it, but I was just saying is that it's not a coincidence that you hear the cries of the planet, and then all of a sudden, you see you're shown something that from Cloud's history or his past.
Exactly. And again, of course, we have the voice script to really explain to us what happened there. So Sephiroth says, here they come. Ear split and shrieking echoes throughout the city. A black cloud, a throng of whispers, fills the sky and begins to envelop Midgar in a sort of dome. So it's very important to note, guys, that it was a dome. I think this is clear, but sometimes it might be missed. It was not a wall. It was a dome. It's just that the party sees it as a wall because they're very close to the edge, right? Cloud and his companions grimace and hold their hands over their ears. Sephiroth is unperturbed. On the contrary, he's quite at ease. So this tells you already the contrast in terms of mindset and perspective that Sephiroth has versus the party, obviously. The cries of Destiny is, again, fundamentally different to Destiny Comes. This is not really the same meaning, but anyways. A wall forms behind Sephiroth at the precipice of the Expressway. Cloud clutches his head against the agony of the cries of Destiny. It seems like a very personal process, guys. Okay, this seems like a very personal thing. Right? The whispers surround the whole group. A special whisper interference effect, I believe that's what you were referring to, different from Cloud's mnemonic interference, is displayed on screen. So that's the whisper interference effect. Let's keep it in mind because we will see it in the Harbinger sequence. The quote-unquote cries of Destiny are the screams of the planet. Aerith later alludes to this. What is the screams of the planet? It's literally souls within the planet bringing memories or being trapped. Okay? Now, why is this omitted? Of course, it's omitted.
Oh, great.
Not a smoking gun at all.
Right. It's probably the most important word in this entire script, to be honest with you.
And what does it say afterwards? Aerith too is pained by the cries of Destiny. They just made a connection between the cries about the cries of Destiny between Cloud, who clutches his head against the agony of the cries of Destiny, and Aerith is pained by the cries of Destiny. This is why this memory is important to both. It's because it's the agony of Destiny for both. This memory is most important to both of them. But the one who witnessed it, at least from a small distance,
oh my goodness,
right, is Cloud.
Okay, can you go back a couple of frames?
Yeah.
I did not catch that first. So, okay, we
zoom out of Cloud.
Look at the particle effects. Yeah, right. Look at the particle effects once Zack appeared, where you start to see Zack's leg.
Yeah, it's the same mnemonic interference.
Yeah, it's like I didn't really kind of notice that when I looked at this the last time, but it's actually quite interesting.
Yeah. Sephiroth is the catalyst for everything. Miz, I totally agree. Could be trapped, Cetra could be one. Cries of those killed by Geos Sigma in the future, assuming Arbiter is Jenova. It's very possible, I think. And I think that they're not mutually exclusive, by the way, Loveseeker, because you could still be talking about Geos Sigma, those infected with Geos Sigma, and Whispers could still have the same treatment, literally, right? If you see what I mean. Alex says, I always imagined that the cries are the people who died by meteor. That is a great way of looking at it, by the way, because either died or about to die by meteor. It's because meteor threatens the existence of the cycle of life and death, because literally Sephiroth wants to trap everyone in the same dream. And so you could literally infer that the Whispers are souls that have been trapped by Jenova in the live stream, and that Sephiroth wants to continue doing this by trapping everyone and all memories, including this one, which is very important here.
and I also think that when it's on the way to a smile, it talks about Aerith meeting people who were angry,
Yeah,
who had rage, and setting them free. Because if you really think about it, this is what Genova does. She infects the live stream with negative emotion, and with the negative emotion, these people do not dissolve peacefully into the live stream. So she's actually choking the live stream because that's energy that is lost. And so that compounded with what they're doing with the Mako, what the Shinra is doing, that's why it says that the planet is exhausted.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, the big question, guys. Listen, did you see purple particles, by the way? They are still purple and
Yes,
green and white,
yes.
right?
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. I couldn't verbalize it, but you got it. Thank you.
You see, it's almost as if you get into the head of either Cloud or the party or Aerith, all of them. I'm still focusing on Cloud here because this memory is important to him first and foremost. It's almost as if you get into his head and you see the memory. This is what the interference does. It takes you to his mind almost. The purple effect again.
By the way, I want to make a slight addendum, or a slight observation that I think that just like with you peeking through the wheelchair Cloud in Rebirth, you were seeing through his eyes. I actually think in this shot, we are actually looking at it through Cloud's eyes.
I believe so as well.
He's on the ground. He's actually looking at it, and that's what,
guys, just as a heads up, I see 20 people viewing the video today. All right, at this moment, thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys being here, but I only see 10 likes. So smash that like button so that we have 20 more people and 20 more people and 20 more people until we reach, what, 100 is the target? We're not going to reach 100 at the same time. If we can get close to that, that would be great. Because I feel that this is a very important, like this is the most important part of Remake almost so far, even including Rebirth, right?
I agree. I think this is where it all starts.
Yeah. Renaissance, thank you so much for popping up. You have to go. Appreciate you showing up for yesterday and today. Really appreciate the chats. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. But there is a big question that I wanted to stop and ask is, why do we see this guy now?
Yeah, I think so. I want to ask this, and this is something that I think that we both talked about at length. For all the talk about defying fate and defying destiny, all this seemingly cosmological talk, why is this the very first vision we see?
Yeah.
And if we're talking about it in cosmological terms, but then the game shows us this. In fact, when we look at the very end of Remake to going up to the credits rolling, we see this.
The outcome is that he survived. That's the only outcome.
I think it's so much more interpersonal than we're being led on.
Yeah, as you said, it's much more introspective. It doesn't stop it from working on multiple layers. And again, it doesn't mean that it's all in his head, because when we zoom out, we will see that Aerith also has access to the same memory, at the very least Aerith. The others could be just holding their heads because they don't know. They don't specify whether the others see the same vision. We will see in the script. But why would Zack be appearing? It's one of the questions, I think I might have asked it in the first video, which was, why would Barrett and Red 13 see Zack? Like, what kind of link is there between the three of them or the two of them? Like, there is no reason for Red 13's destiny to be attached to Zack, especially when you see what Zack goes on to do interior. I mean, Red 13 is a bad example because he helps Aerith. But Barrett, there is no link between Barrett and Zack at all. Barrett's destiny is not linked to Zack's fate. Cloud's destiny, on the other hand.
Yes. And I think that's, again, I think that, again, taking what the story is telling us and not to try to overthink it.
Yeah.
And try to make it more than it seems, just taking it what the story is telling us, it's way more of an introspective look than a cosmological one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, so Loveseeker says, this scene is just to show the effect on time as a whole, past and future. This is a key moment we can no change. I totally agree with the mechanics, but I do have another question, once again. Why is this the only thing that changed? Because if we talk about the effect on time, whole, past, and future, it seems that only memories of Cloud have been changed. The first memory is Zack's death is the only first thing that changed. The second thing is Aerith's death, and that's the only thing that's changed so far in Rebirth. So you have two major things that have been changed due to Crossroads, Destiny's Crossroads, Fate, whatever. None of them is relevant to Barrett, for example. Barrett's Destiny and Fate are not linked to any of those other aspects. I'm just using Barrett as an example because he's probably the most detached from Destiny stuff, and he also says it. He doesn't care about it. Eric says they can't see Zack or the rainbow in the sky because they don't have the blessing to see the live stream world fractures that was given to Cloud by Sephiroth at the end of Rebirth. Is it a blessing, or is it essentially that he is the only one who is in a vulnerable position towards Sephiroth that is able to see that? He is the one who Sephiroth has the most access to. He has a direct access to his mind. Cloud has seen things that the others are so remote from that it's insane. The Edge of Creation, so except Zack, so Barrett and Tifa, for example, let me just tell you this, guys. When the big explosion happens, and I know we're not doing this sequentially, but I think that the conversation benefits from it. When this happens, boom. So they obviously see a light or whatever. Why is it that only Cloud travels to the edge of creation, guys? And we're gonna zoom in on him. He's clearly suffering. Something fundamental is happening to Cloud's mind at this moment. Why are the others not traveling to the edge of creation with him? Barrett, Tifa, and Red 13 have never been to the edge of creation. And there is a big argument to be made about the fact that the Aerith who appears at the edge of creation is not the Aerith, it's live stream Aerith. It's essentially there. It's still not, it's not her that was with us in the Beagle timeline, just to put it that way. And Zack is coming from the live stream as well, because obviously we know where he was. So most importantly, why do we... So this is where the deviation supposedly happened, because this is the last, literally the last moment before we go into leave Midgar and so on. But why is Cloud the only one who travels to the edge of creation? We can't know if these changes occurred in the same timeline, so we can't see the future effects of said change. We know Zack's alive but not with us. So him living doesn't affect our direct future. Right, thank you. Edge of creation isn't real, it's in Cloud's mind. Okay, that's great. How does Zack get into the edge of creation? He gets to the edge of creation through a white space, right? If the edge of creation is essentially Cloud's mind, can we then infer that all the white space is essentially tunnels to Cloud's mind? Let's put it that way. And that Zack and Aerith are kind of hovering around and trying to help him, and that Tifa will absolutely help him in part 3? Or do we still feel that Zack comes from another universe to Cloud's mind? How do we build those mechanics? Do you see what I mean? I'm not criticizing Eric and Loveseeker. I'm not criticizing your opinion. I'm sorry if it comes across that way. I just take logic and I push it to the extreme. I can assume the reason is because Cloud is a vessel for Sephiroth. He won't have a need for anyone in the party but Cloud, so he doesn't send them there too. He doesn't care about the rest of them. But clearly Aerith and Zack are able to go there. So why does Zack end up at the edge of creation then? Aerith is a different topic, because Aerith is at the same level as Sephiroth in terms of live stream shenanigans. But why is Zack able to go to the edge of creation if Sephiroth only needs Cloud? If it is to protect him, to protect Cloud from Sephiroth, then shouldn't the party also have the chance to protect Cloud? Do you see what I mean? I just take the logic and push it to the extreme once again. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. Where were we? We were here, right?
Yeah. Here we go.
We drag our asses all this way. This is the welcome we get.
Oh, very important detail we did not go over. This is the same Midgar supposedly being shown in the Singularity where the party is. We are in the same area.
Yes.
Mind you.
Yeah, but your point is that it's daytime there, but it's nighttime.
Exactly.
Where they
it's clearly
are.
daytime over Midgar. right?
Right.
So why is
So how is
what's going on? Now, the other thing is, we haven't even crossed into the singularity. This is just us
Right.
seeing that from the outside. So it's almost as if within the dome, it's nighttime. Outside the dome, it's daytime. Within the dome, Zack doesn't exist. Outside the dome, Zack exists. Now, what happens afterwards? Within the dome, Zack exists. Within Midgar, once we go into Terrier. Outside Midgar, Zack doesn't exist. This is possibly one of the biggest hints that of one of the concepts we were talking about, which is that it is possible that the barriers between Beagle and Terrier are physical and not just symbolic and metaphysical and multiverse-like. It's possible that literally when you leave Midgar, you are in a scenario where Zack doesn't exist. And when you come back to it, you are in a scenario where Zack exists. And that's exactly how Rebirth went. There is possibly one instance when we saw Midgar from the inside without Zack. And that is the scene where Elmira is looking at Glenn's speech with the SRC threatening Shinra and whatnot. But we don't even know if that was the Terrier timeline or the Beagle world. Let's call it world. Because at no point we are shown a stamped dog. And at no point we are shown Zack. So for all we know, it's still possible that the Elmira scene we saw was also taking place in Terrier. Do you guys see what I mean? It doesn't seem that these worlds are parallel. They seem to be physically connected, which would make perfect sense in the sense that when Zack goes back inside the dome, he meets a Biggs who knows Cloud from inside the dome. Just imagine that inside the dome and outside the dome is two different things. They are physical barriers. It's as if you're going outside of your house. If you come back, you left your cat inside the house or whatever. If you go inside the house, you find your cat. If you go outside, the cat is not outside because the cats stay inside, stay indoors. Now, when Zack goes inside, he does find the cat, right? He finds Biggs. And that's the same Biggs that Cloud was with. But when we go outside, this Zack doesn't exist anymore. And Zack is seemingly unable to escape Midgar. Or not unable to escape Midgar because he did not attempt to do that. But at the very least is not considering getting out of Midgar at all for now. Two worlds uniting. Yes, but I feel like this is two worlds splitting, Alex. Because what we are experiencing in the Singularity, the worlds will unite at the end of Rebirth. But what we are seeing here is two worlds branching out. Because once again, you will have two versions of the party. You have a version of the party that goes into Beagle with Cloud. And you have a version of the party who is unconscious. And that is a big topic on its own, once again.
Right. I just wanted to point it out that Nojima actually said that, a new world is being born at this juncture. And to your point, yeah, the one thing that we can take away is that in the Terrier world, there is the entire party, Cloud included, are all unconscious.
Yes.
And then of course in the Beagle world, they're all conscious. So where is also what did you think you did? In fact, the newscast that you see at the beginning of the Terrier that you see at the beginning when Zack is in the Terrier world, you hear that same news report in the Beagle on the radio.
It does seem as though the worlds are connected. They are not parallel. They are physically connected. Right. Now, when you merge them, it seems that we are in the same space. That's what happened at the end of Rebirth. But just to kind of emphasize what you meant, but when you were talking about there, when Nojima says that a new world is created. So let's listen to what he says. This is from the Rebirth Ultimania. How will the multiple worlds depicted by the Loyal Dog stamp end? The structure of this world has become quite clear in this film. Basically, well, this game. This is machine translated, by the way. Basically, the world is changing because Cloud and his friends destroyed the Wall of Destiny in the previous game, right? Nojima, yes, that's correct. The idea is that once you step beyond the Wall of Fate in Remake, a new world is being constructed. At this point, it's difficult to explain without giving away spoilers. And Toriyama says that the final structure of the world or the planet or the worlds will become clear in the third game, obviously. But this is just to re-emphasize what you mean when you say that the world, a new world is being created when we step outside. And we will see it in a minute. Wow, it's just almost 2 hours and we're still in this segment, but I love it. That Sephiroth represents, there is some type of, okay, the white live stream, okay, as for why Zack can travel between the worlds, I think it was an intended consequence of fate being broken. The white live stream is using Zack as a catalyst to fight back against the black live stream that Sephiroth represents. There is some type of cosmic reason related to healing Cloud that Zack is going to represent. Yes, Eric, I agree. But doesn't it feel like we're hovering around Zack is important to Cloud because essentially his persona is within Cloud? I feel like this is just a disguised way of saying that Zack is important because his legacy literally lives on within Cloud, and because Cloud thinks he's Zack, or he has Zack's memories. Because Cloud's personality is fractured, his real self is not there yet. A portion of him thinks he's Zack, a portion of him is his true self, a portion of him is influenced by Sephiroth, and then maybe a portion of him has something different in part 3. But when all of those come together is when we have the real Cloud. It's just that Zack represents one of those fragments for now. If we assume Zack is just a memory and worlds are memory and they live in the livestream, maybe they can be combined through the livestream and Mako. I agree, Loveseeker, but aren't memories a very individual concept? What does it mean for a memory to be in the livestream? I think that a memory being in the livestream is meaningless until it's experienced by someone. When someone gets a memory or returns a memory to the planet or whatever, that is when the memory takes form. But if we look at the memory on its own in the live stream, I know this is very abstract, I'm sorry guys, but the memory on its own does not make sense because it's just metaphysical. It only becomes tangible to a certain extent, and not even fully tangible, once someone experiences the memory.
And what we see in the Terrio world is really what's going on with Cloud's memories. Cloud's memories are disjointed.
Yeah.
They're, and the thing about it though, the biggest proof of that is that you see Zack getting there with Cloud in tow. Obviously, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
But then they talk about the Sector 7 playfall. That happened several weeks apart at the bare minimum. Actually, it's probably about more like 2 months apart. So how can you have Zack and Cloud getting to Midgar and the playfall already have happened? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying at the very beginning that you got to start looking at this in a symbolic point of view. Because if you try to interpret it literally, it doesn't make sense. Those two events happen several weeks apart. But the news reporter make it seem like it's been talking about it back to back, which is not the case.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense on its own. And Loveseeker, you also say, i.e. the Mako in Cloud's body. Now I understand a bit more what you meant. Yeah, I totally agree. The Mako in Cloud's body is what gives him access to knowledge, or what gives Sephiroth access to him, right? Two worlds uniting. It would be weird if we say it's worlds uniting because we never see it happen till Rebirth, and Sephiroth seems to need to do a lot to make it happen. Yes, I totally agree. In multiple times in FF7 OG Compilation 7R, they say that the last stream is alive and has a will of its own. Zack traveling the world is a defense mechanism to protect itself from Sephiroth. Eric, I agree in theory, but in practice, did we see Zack fight back against Sephiroth alone or do anything to counter Sephiroth? It seems to me that Zack served two purposes. The first one is fighting Sephiroth with Cloud at the Edge of Creation, which really represents Cloud's personalities. I feel that the Edge of Creation Rebirth fight was a very big had very big symbolism in terms of showing you that Cloud is able to fend off Sephiroth thanks to his own self and thanks to Zack. It showed you that he is delusional. He thinks he is Zack, or he has his memories. But that is also essential to him because Zack is very strong. Zack's personality is very positive, is very optimistic. He's a great fighter. So those things are actually beneficial and vital to Cloud, dare I say.
And I think that you actually hit on something that's very important there, because Zack, that Zack persona it counteracts what Jenova is trying to do, because I believe that this is really Jenova attacking Cloud's psyche, and what they're trying to do here is they're trying to strip out the Zack part of him, because it is something, it's what's keeping him from becoming a role figure basically, and just becoming a mindless zombie. It's something that actually that counteracts Jenova, and it knows that. Remember, at the end of the day, Jenova is a memory parasite.
Yes, it's
that's the best way to describe it, and uses memories as a weapon. In fact, that's when you hear what Ifana was talking about, how when it first appeared, it appeared as dead loved ones, to the Cetra. So yeah, if we think about it in that context, it makes more
You
sense.
said an absolutely key thing there, and I love the way you phrased it. You said that it might be about stripping Cloud of his Zack persona. So this is about fracturing the worlds, guys. This is not a reunion of worlds, right? It's about the personas of Zack not being inside Cloud anymore. Why? Because it provides resistance against Jenova and Sephiroth. The persona of Zack is very resilient, and that's possibly what helps Cloud in Remake, and we just don't see it. Or that's what helps him in Rebirth, because it appears. We don't know how to... We could position it differently. But it is possible that as soon as this has happened, the persona of Zack was also fractured from within Cloud's ego. At this moment, Cloud's true self is outside. And that's possibly the Cloud who is at the edge of creation. So it's possible that what they really managed to do here is that Cloud has inside of him his true self and Zack and Sephiroth's will. What they did at the end of Remake is that they might have trapped the real Cloud at the edge of creation, because that's where Sephiroth is. So it could have been just a swap. Sephiroth's will is now inside of Cloud instead of Cloud's true self and his will. And the second thing that was done is also removing Zack's persona from there and leaving it in Midgar. It's almost as if Cloud left part of himself at the edge of creation or in Midgar, and he left behind him the Zack persona as well. This is why in Rebirth, the level of access that Sephiroth and Jenova have to Cloud's mind is insanely high compared to what we see in Remake. This is the moment where Cloud, and at the moment he gets the black materia, it's even worse, because now they can just merge things together, merge back those personalities, but the personality that's going to prevail, as it was going to be at the end of Rebirth, is the one that has the black materia. It's almost as though Sephiroth wanted to break down Cloud's personas, went into Rebirth, managed to get the black materia in Cloud's hands, and then now I'm going to reunite this persona now that the strongest one will be the one that has the black materia. And that's how I'm going to control this guy. I am going to make sure that the persona that is that has the strongest will is not the one that Zack represents, and it's not his true self, but rather is the one that has black materia. Now, all of this is symbolic once again. Hi, Josh. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in.
By the way, just for the people that are listening and try to tie this back to OG, remember in the live stream sequence in the OG, there were multiple Clouds.
Yes.
And remember in Rebirth, unfortunately I did not play it, so don't ask me to explain it. But there is a side quest where there are multiple Johnnies.
Yes.
And I want to just put that out there. You know, they say that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. I think that that they might be trying to tell you something. And to your point, Steve, I believe at the end of Rebirth, we saw two things. One, we see the Zack persona being stripped out of Cloud. That's what you saw at the very end of Rebirth, when it was Zack saying, well, if just as worlds unite, so too they part. Who's to say they can't unite again? That's what we're seeing. But on the flip side, we also see the real Cloud, the one that attempted that prevented Cloud from killing Aerith there at the Forgotten Capital, being merged with the one that's susceptible to Sephiroth and Jenova. That's why you see the black materia and the white materia, although it's clear right there. And then when you look inside the white materia, you see that it's in half. You see that the sky is both reflected on the very top edge of the materia and the very bottom edge. That means there's a split there.
Absolutely.
But it's one. So I think that these are, again, a little hints that the game is giving you what's really going on.
Absolutely. And I think that Alex says a great point here. Maybe Zack was only able to appear at the edge of creation because Cloud remembered Zack when the group was in Nibelheim in Rebirth. Exactly. You will notice that things happen in the Terrier world almost as a consequence or as a cause behind what happens in the real world. It's almost as if you have a dream that influences your behavior in real life. Eric says, no, of course, we don't exactly know how it entails. I believe we spoke about this. The planet wanted Zack to travel the live stream. I do think the planet is trying to save Zack. I'm just talking about the finality of it. I do think it's to fight back against Sephiroth, but I think it inevitably goes through repairing Cloud's personality fracture before actually fighting Sephiroth himself. Do you see what I mean? So this is why Zack appearing here becomes much more... It makes sense if you imagine it as Cloud's persona or Zack's persona within Cloud being stripped away. helping Cloud regain his true self. Absolutely, exactly, Eric. And so let me press you on that. If you feel that Zach's role is really just to help Cloud regain his true self in the live stream, would you say that the existence of the Terrier world also serves the same purpose? And if that's the case, is the Terrier world essentially a dream that the live stream sends to Cloud's unconscious? It is a dream. It is not all in his head because the live stream connects everything, but it is still real because it represents a real repressed emotions. It represents a repressed event, which is Zach's death, right? That's to put it that way. Would you say that then the purpose of the Terrier world is to show him, is to help him? Because Zach wants to cure Cloud in the temporarily closed Terrier world, which I strongly believe we will see in part 3. It shows him that in the Chihuahua world, or let's say in the Pug world, Biggs died and Zach dies as well. And it shows him that in the Corgi world, Sephiroth is the threat to Aerith. That's what it shows as well in the Chihuahua world, is that you can't really save Aerith, you need to save yourself, right? This is the kind of symbolism that was there. Materia Hunter, thank you so much for popping up. It's all right, you can catch the VOD. I will make sure to leave the timestamps here, although we are going into all sorts of different tangents, so I'm trying to make it structured. Glad I caught the stream. Sup, people? Hey, robots, moist robots. Thank you for joining. Yeah. And yeah, Bunke, just to re-emphasize what you meant by different clouds, it's this. This is his shadow, the part he was repressing, the part he didn't identify with, the part that was ashamed of whatever relationship was there between the kids and Tifa, and the awkwardness that he had versus the others. And if you look at it here, you will see that there are literally different clouds. Now, where else do we see Cloud being represented with different versions? It's the white space in Remake. When he falls from the Sector 5 church, you see his true self talk to Remake Cloud and tell him, hey, buddy, are you doing okay? Are we doing this or what? Blah, 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 blah. And then
you also see the kid Cloud at the Temple of you also see the kid Cloud at the Temple of the Ancients.
Yes.
After they get the black materia.
And you saw him within Tifa's trial too. The kid version of Cloud appears within. So this is what you meant, Bunke, when you meant different clouds. So guys, just imagine that these are clouds from different worlds. And it's going to become much easier.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly it.
Let me do something.
Preach, brother.
Yeah, let me do something. I don't want to make this a manual paint session. Thankfully, we have much more modern tools now that can help us do this in much better ways. And I'm pretty sure I already shared a screenshot of this. But if you imagine that the different personalities could be that, or could be those fragments, then it becomes much easier. Can we get a good version here? This doesn't have all of them. Is there one where we have all of them? No, this one does not. This one doesn't. This one has all of them. Let me show you guys what I mean.
You need that printout from the Ultimania.
Yeah,
that
totally.
That shows that page. Yeah,
exactly. So here's what I mean, guys. Imagine that this is 1, right? Imagine that this is 2. Imagine that this is 3. Do you guys see what we mean? Because Cloud already exists in these worlds independently, and he even took control of one of them. Let me have a version of this world. Maybe a Corgi. We still don't know what this stuff means, right? But imagine that in the live stream sequence in part 3, you have a Terrier version of Zack that merges with the Pug version of Zack, with the Corgi version of Zack, with the Chihuahua version of Cloud, with the Beagle version of Cloud, and then with 1-star and 2-star stamps, which could be coming from somewhere. And with those 7 worlds coming up together, all merging, it becomes the singularity of Cloud, and his persona is finally made whole. And we spoke a lot about this stuff when we did the Carl Young video. Seen some vids of yours, good stuff, cool to check out the stream. Thank you so much, Remy Nils. Really appreciate it. Thank you for showing up to the stream, and I'm glad you like the videos. There are still more to come, but obviously just try to focus a bit more on stream in the last few days. Feel like we need to go back to the Singularity, right? This might be a multi-stream kind of thing where we have it over multiple parts. Now we were here.
Now, and while you're doing that, I was just going to mention that. Now think about what Namira said about the different worlds and how they are perceptions,
Yes.
distorted perceptions of Final Fantasy VII. But he doesn't say who the deceptions pointed to. But to me, if you use the process of elimination, it's just all about Cloud.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the person that would have the person that is the likeliest to have confusion in different parts of them is Cloud and no one else in the game. The person that could be the
Right.
most similar to us with distorted perceptions of what FF7 is Cloud himself. Now, at what point is this taking place is a completely different conversation, of course. At the end of the OG, Cloud literally has a final subconscious attack from Sephiroth and his mind splits again to purge Sephiroth from his mind. There is a goofy animation. Cloud flies backward at the screen. Are you talking about the Edge of Creation in the OG, Josh? Does Sephiroth attack him in the Edge of Creation, or does Cloud right away go with the Omnislash? It's actually a good point that you bring up there.
You know what? It's interesting in the OG. If you do absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
like you don't hit an attack button, Sephiroth will attack you, but he can't kill you.
Yeah. Because
You can't die there. He's like you, and then you'll automatically do the Omnislash.
exactly. And what does that mean to the player? This is the game telling you it's over. Cloud is strong enough. He doesn't rely on you, the player, anymore. He is him now. Even you, the player, he is him.
And just to tie this in to Advent Children. Now think about Advent Children when he was losing to Sephiroth, and then he says, "Hey, you need a hand?"
Yeah, Zach tells him that.
He's like, "No." Yeah, and he's like, "Nope, I don't need you." I mean, well, he didn't say that. I don't
He
need
says
you,
no.
but
He
that's
just
how you're supposed to
yeah. He
understand.
just nods.
I don't need you anymore. Yeah, and then exactly, this is again that story arc of Cloud realizing that he does not need to be Zack
Exactly.
to honor his legacy.
Exactly that. Now Josh says if you pull up the footage where he says he's laughing. Oh, right, my bad. Sorry, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about this.
Oh yeah, when he travels,
Yeah.
when it shows him, he falls
Exactly.
down, and then you see a part of himself fly off into the background. Yes, I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah,
And guys, listen. I know, crazy theory, and we haven't built up towards it. But it's very possible that the remake takes place from this part. Where is it here? It is possible that this is where remake is taking place. This is why they are going over their memories. It's to free the planet from Genova and Sephiroth's control. We will talk about why this looks like the Forgotten Capital. That's a big topic again. But let's see what Josh was talking about. It's important to know that Cloud becomes his true self, but it doesn't mean that Sephiroth doesn't have access to him anymore. And even Genova, even in Advent Children, Cloud has interference at the beginning of Advent Children. The difference is that he's strong enough. He knows it's an illusion, and he knows that Sephiroth is dead, and he doesn't need to go after him anymore. Look at this. He is still here. And I feel like this might be the end of the game where we go like, oh my god, what is going on in part 3? But you go back and you replay the OG and this already existed. I believe what Josh meant here is that part of Cloud travels out of his body, so he's fractured again, so that he becomes whole once again, right? Is that what you meant, Josh? He's laughing. And you know what he's gonna... Bunke, do you know what Cloud is gonna hear here in part 3? He's gonna hear, I'm waiting, Cloud, inside his head, once again.
Oh, that would be cool. And I also wanted to point it out that when you look at the Omnislash, remember Sephiroth was announced for Smash.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone went nuts about that one. And I wanted to point it out something about that. Is that they say Omnislash level 5.
Yes.
Because there's different versions of the Omnislash. If you look at the Omnislash version that he uses in Advent Children, it looks like there's multiple clouds.
Yes. Absolutely. It's
So
a big
just putting that out
theme.
there.
Cloud being fractured and reuniting is a big theme. Now, do we have any sound here? No, we don't have any sound for some reason. But what I wanted to show is that this really looks like he's traveling through all the memories. That's the first part, so that could be remake. This is the second part, okay? This is memories of everything. And then you go into I don't know, Holy is now summoned or Holy is in the water because Aerith just died. So that's the end of Rebirth. And then this is the third part. So this is why I'm saying it's possible that Remake, the entirety of Remake is taking place while Cloud is traveling through this tunnel and going through his memories. Is this all in his head? No, it's in the live stream. It's real. Because the purpose is that he lands here and beats this guy. It is not useless. It has a very specific purpose.
Right. I think that, again, we see this at the end of Remake, but Cloud loses.
Yes.
And you brought up a good point when he did, Cloud or Sephiroth doesn't say not yet in Japanese.
No.
He says 2 weeks.
Yes, he tells him
He
2
says
weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a huge clue of where Remake is taking place.
Absolutely.
In relative to the original. It's like, obviously, this is before he winds up at that space where he defeats Sephiroth.
Yes, absolutely. Materia Hunter says, before I go, I wanted to ask if you think the small recap video of the party escaping from Midgard is the same people who weren't cautious at the beginning of Rebirth. This is the big question from yesterday. I feel like there could be different answers, and I'm struggling to see which one makes the most sense. I don't know at what moment the party gets duplicated is what I'm struggling with. I will say, for me, the likeliest, if I keep it objective and try not to bias my opinion with my own theories, if I try to detach myself, like to fracture my personality from my theories, is I believe that it's the ones who get swept away by the tornadoes. Like, that's the most Occam's razor kind of explanation. It's the most simple explanation, is that the party that goes into Rebirth... My God, what's going on? Yo, where's the video? Okay. It is this version of the party. Where is it? The most easy to explain would be that at this moment... This is the party that goes into Terrier. Look, because the world is being duplicated. Do you see? There is a world being summoned upwards. This is what Nojima means when he says, when you walk into the wall of destiny, a new world is being created.
Right, because there's a contradiction here. You've seen the whispers tear through it, everything, right? Tearing through it, but then you see there is everything is being torn, but then the next scene you see Cloud floating in the air, which should be another red flag.
Yeah, it's a big red flag.
But then you see an intact Midgar.
Yes.
Like, wait a minute, how can the tornado be destroying Midgar? But then they show you in the next scene, they show you a Midgar that's intact. That doesn't make any sense.
You see that so the expressway is being pulled upwards, and a new world is being constructed at the top of the tornadoes. And the party is going to be swept away by the whispers, right?
The thing about it, though, you see the particle effects. So if I can explain it to people that are watching, is that this is what I mean about not taking the game too literal. Yeah. Okay, there's no literal particle effects that should be happening. There shouldn't be a tornado here either. Yes. I mean, there's no storm in the system. So this is symbolic. So the question you should be asking yourself is, what is the game trying to tell us here? Well, you see it being purple coded. So what's happening here definitely isn't for Cloud's benefit. I will just put it that way.
It's not positive. It's not with the. It's not on the white side of the live stream. For sure not.
Exactly. And then you posted, this is how I found you. This is my favorite scene in the entire
This is the
remake.
biggest smoking gun, guys.
Right, exactly. It's the biggest smoking gun. Where have you seen that? You just showed it about 2 minutes ago.
We just saw it out in the other one, right?
Yes.
Where was the other one?
Yes.
Well, if I go, we're going to lose it. But that's when he wakes up at the edge of creation.
Right. Exactly. So that's an obvious smoking gun. So this is why my belief is that none of this is happening in the physical world. These are all worlds in a live stream, not a dream, not in Cloud's head. I want to make sure I make this clear. This is happening within the live stream. The stakes are just the same as if it was happening in the physical world, because if Cloud loses here, the planet's done
exactly.
For. That's how I can't make any plan.
And it's all leading to the big showdown with Sephiroth. This is why he needs to be ready. Some of this logic seems inconsistent. Saint Rebirth scene happened before that moment in the OG, but we know the trilogy is a sequel. Loveseeker. This is a safe space for sequel and non-sequel conversation. But my personal opinion, I believe Benkei's as well, and many of the people that you might be seeing here, I think a lot of folks interpret this as a sequel, but there are still a lot of us which think that it's not necessarily a sequel, but rather a reimagining. So this is why we might reference some stuff that does not use the sequel theory as evidence or as as an assumption, right? You can't have future and past knowledge without it being a sequel. I believe you can. I believe you can.
Yeah, I think if I can just make a suggestion. Earlier we talked about this, and feel free, but earlier in our conversation we talked about that the future may not be in a sense something as simple as these are future memories, because you do run to that conundrum of, well, if it's, how can it be a future memory of something that hasn't happened yet? But there are possibilities, and I did not come up with that word.
Yeah.
That's in Ever Crisis. That's used twice, actually. That's used in Ever Crisis intro, and it's used again in the 2.5-year update when it's talking about the future. So it's not as if the future's already occurred. It's that based upon what's going on in the past and the present, the planet can see possible futures. And even in Remake, we have seen 2 futures. One where the planet survives, the OG ending. We also see a Doom future in the VR room.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And so Loveseeker, just to kind of make it a bit more, to make it a bit more concrete, and we might draw here, but I'm just gonna, because I don't want to derail too much again, I might go on a tangent. Imagine that the party is on a boat, right? The boat is riding the waves. The boat is the real life, is the real physical life that they all experience. Everything that's below the ocean is the live stream. Now, no one can see below the ocean because they don't have that superpower. Only Aerith and Sephiroth can do that. Cloud can also get knowledge from, if he puts his head down inside the ocean and inside the sea or whatever, he can see knowledge, but he doesn't necessarily understand it. The ocean, if you look long enough, so imagine you're traveling from Europe to North America. If you can see long enough, could you see the shores of North America? You might be able to. If you are Red 13 and you have that kind of vision, you could literally put your head down inside the sea and look very far all the way. You have just started your trip from Europe. This is going in a very weird direction, but I like it. You're looking very far. Imagine that you have goggles that allow you to see all the way through the end of the ocean. Would you be able to see the shores of New York, for example? You could be. But the rest are not able to see. This is what the live stream is. Do you need to be in New York to see it? Yes, you're likely to need that. But there are people who could be still in, have just left Europe, and who actually look below the ocean and are able to see the furthest thing in the ocean. Does that make sense?
But can I also point out something to you? Is that, let's just say this is a year later.
Yeah.
The third game is out and it's beaten, and someone on X or someone's going to be right, or about maybe 80% right. Does it mean that they went into the future and found that knowledge?
Exactly.
Or did they use events of the past and the present, and they was able to extrapolate based on what they played in Remake and Rebirth, how it's going to end up? So just because someone has knowledge of the future does not necessarily mean that there's time travel involved. Well, they went to the future. Again, it just means that because of their, let's just use in this instance, someone's smart enough where they can actually glean from playing Remake and Rebirth how the story was going to conclude.
That's a great way of, that's another great analogy. Is that just because you can be right about it doesn't mean that you saw what happened. The memories can't exist in the live stream unless it happened. Yes, the memory. I think, Loveseeker, I think what you're debating is, what's the word? Is it determinism?
You know, we fate, destiny,
it's
that
predestination.
All comes into play.
I think what you're, exactly.
Yeah.
What you're discussing, Loveseeker, is predestination. Predestination means that everything that has happened or will ever happen have been already decided, and that you can only witness it, be it in the past, present, or future. This is, I feel, what you are getting at. But we have to split apart the concept of predestination from how people experience it. The events could have been drawn from A to Z to the end of time, but you experiencing it, you do not necessarily need towards the end to be towards the end to witness it, because it already exists. You are just witnessing what happens.
I also like to bring up another analogy is that life is I mean, you could look at it in the film of if you could see dark clouds on the horizon and you could say it's going to rain here shortly. If it rains,
Yeah.
does that mean that you cause it to rain? No, it doesn't. It just means that you had the foresight because you saw the dark clouds
Exactly.
that it was going to rain. Also, there are certain things you can control and things you can't control. You could not control that there was going to be rain. But you can control whether if you get behind the wheel, if you're drunk and crashing into someone and killing
Exactly.
them. Now that's something you can control. And this is sort of like art imitating life. I think what Cloud is about to find out is that there are certain things he can control.
Yes.
And there's certain things he can't control. In Advent Children, you see a little flash. There's something they added in Advent Children Complete, where there's a little scene where Cloud sees Aerith's death and Zack's death and Tifa in danger.
Yes.
He couldn't save them all, but he could have saved one of them. He ended up saving the day, obviously, and saving Tifa in the process. And that, to me, is what I ultimately what it boils down to. That Cloud has to understand that he can't save everyone, and that's not a realistic expectation as of a hero.
Here it is. We just saw it, or did we? No, that was another one. You're absolute. That's right before the fight with Bahamut, right? It's when Cloud appears with Fenrir.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And Denzel is part of it too, by the way, huh? So these influenced the design of the Whispers, by the way, guys, just as a heads up. Oh, I don't want to get any copyright with Advent Children's music, so we'll just leave it very, very low. So, we are witnessing this as Denzel here, right? Why are we all of a sudden in Cloud's head? It doesn't mean that we're in Cloud's head. It means that Cloud got a vision and all of a sudden decided to go and fight for what he loves, or those he loves. It doesn't mean that this scene was literally happening through Cloud's mind.
By the way, I just want to remind people
See? He saw it.
Scene there from Crisis Core, that scene from Crisis Core, that was not in the original Crisis Core.
Yes.
They added that specifically for Advent Children. You never see it from Zack's back like you
even
do
in
that.
Remake. This doesn't exist even in Remake.
Yeah.
And the design is very much Remake-esque.
Yeah.
You see, what Cloud gets here is a superpower. He sees everything in one go, and he... Look at what he does. This is setting up how Cloud's live stream connection and Mako poisoning background gives him access to almost supernatural stuff, as far as Final Fantasy supernatural rules are concerned. He is able to see everything. And he's also reminded of what happened with Aerith and Zack. And he's like, this time I will not let them die and I will save both. And how are you telling me this is the bad ending, guys? I'm sorry, I don't want to go on a rant once again. How is this the bad ending? The guy literally uses this... What happens in FF7 OG and in Remake has taught Cloud that he is able to save those he loves, and he does it here. So why is this a bad ending?
It's not. It's a completion of a story arc that began in Crisis Core and ends
This is
here.
the most triumphant, trajectory or arc ever. Anyways, back to the chat. I'm just along for the ride. Yeah, all this stuff is complicated for my poor brain. I think Remy Nils, for all it's worth, I think it's going to be as simple as ABC when we get the confirmation on what really happens. But I'm loving the big brain theories. Appreciate it. Yeah, can think up this stuff. Is just that we spend way too much on this stuff. That's why. Cloud is...
By the way, I wanted to comment to what Alex says here. The live stream is basically a four-dimensional space.
Yes.
I think that it's not an accident that we saw that vision in the VR. Because I remember I was using AI to do some research on this, and the AI was saying that the VR machine is actually powered by Mako. So basically, energy from the live stream, and that is how it was able to manifest itself right then and there, and shows you that vision, with the bad outcome.
Absolutely. And I know that, well, I understand, guys, the idea that it could be a sequel. I understand. I'm not against it being a sequel. I just need an explanation that for all of these mechanisms, right? I think by bad ending, they just mean the tragedy, bad stuff is happening. Yes, Psycho Unicorn, but real Final Fantasy VII really portrays life on a very realistic basis, right? I think we can all agree on that. It is not it is the least fantasy out of the Final Fantasies, if we were to put it that way. Because it portrays...
It is not Disney.
Yeah. It's much more rooted in real life themes and portrayal of events, of things that really happen to humanity on a realistic basis versus all the other Final Fantasies. And bad stuff is important for growth, absolutely. I push back against the idea that we need to undo this future. I think that the maturity is accepting, be it as characters or as players. The maturity is accepting that this stuff will inevitably happen. What can I do to be strong enough to fight it? This is, for me, this is a much better message to give to your audience than, well, if you try hard enough and you go back in time, you can undo stuff.
And can I point this out to here's the thing, though, is that this is how we talked about in the beginning, how they could be using sleight of hand. If the OG future is to be avoided, you're saying that the future where Cloud beats Sephiroth twice
is undone.
And the planet is 500 years later still going strong. You want to avoid that future. Is that what you're trying to tell me? You got to think about it from that point of view.
Absolutely.
It's really, if you really think about it from that point of view, then you realize that something's not right here. There's more to it. But to your point, though, is that Advent Children obviously is not a bad ending. It's just that people had the idea of what the world was going to be like after OG. They didn't expect that the world would be in such rough shape, even though that's very, very true to real life. After war, there's always a rebuilding phase. There's rubble everywhere. There's a lot of lives lost.
Yep.
There's a lot of trauma. There's all of this, and that all plays out in Advent Children. Everyone thought at the end of OG, because of course of what you see with Red 13 and his clubs, you thought that it was going to be like a Disney-like happy ending. And when we actually got the sequel to Final Fantasy VII, you realize that's quite not the case.
And I think that's why people don't like it, as you say. But thematically, does it fit? I believe that thematically it fits perfectly. And to be clear, guys, I am not against the sequel theory, as a concept. I am very much against we need to remove... Listen, I'm not going to go on this rant now. I love Max's content. I think that Max has been hyping FF7 like no other content creator, and I personally think that the community benefited a lot from him. But saying things like, I want Advent Children to be decanonized altogether and to literally be thrown away from the compilation is completely detached from reality, guys. I am sorry to say this. You can appreciate a person and their content and still disagree fundamentally with them. And I'm sorry if this comes across offensive. I don't want it to be. But I fundamentally disagree with this. And I think the discourse has to do with the size of the voice that Max has and him saying this thing rather than him having the opinion himself. But I don't want to go on a rant. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say that.
Well, but it's important that we talk about that, because Steve, you know what, you just said something. You know that viewpoint is detached from reality. That's exactly what they're doing. This argument, this debate that we're having about it is depicted in the game. This is the ending you got. So in other words, Nojima is saying, we know you guys hate Advent Children, and they're Cerberus to a lesser extent for different reasons, but you hate what happened at the end of Advent Children. So let me make that part of the narrative. So now this is the ending that you want to fight against. Let me see, because remember, at the end of the day, Nojima wrote the scenario for Advent Children too. So let me just going to ask you, do you really think that he's going to write it out where he's going to decanonize something that he wrote himself?
And
just putting that out there.
Whenever Nojima has brought new stuff, or Nomura, or whatever it is, they have been doubling down the more the story went. They have never decanonized anything almost. The only thing was before was it called the anime? The one which they did in like the execution of the Nibelheim incident. I totally forgot the name, but the anime with the Nibelheim incident, where Sephiroth just loses his mind and jumps rather than whatever happens.
Right. Yeah, they actually came out and said that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the truth.
They will come out and say it.
So that's what.
And you guys need to
Yeah.
trust the developers. If there is something as big as we will undo Advent Children, trust me. Last Order, thank you, Fenrir. They will absolutely not tell you that we will link up with Advent Children or it will be part of the canon. If they wanted to decanonize it, they will never mention it. They will be like, oh, Advent Children is the compilation. We are doing Remake. It's a different thing. That's what they would have said. What they would have said.
And then Kadase just said the opposite. He says that because of Remake, we're finally going to make Advent Children canon,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about it on another stream. But that got us got us excited because it makes us wonder: could we see events of Advent Children actually play out in the third game to kind of tie it all together? I mean, it's not. I don't think they will, but it's not outside of possibility.
It's a dream.
But I just love the fact. Yeah, and I love the fact here is that this is incredible because they planned this. They knew that we would be arguing about the fate of the characters in the OG and how some people hated how Advent Children ended up as far as the story is told. And then they took that and they made the ending of Rebirth make you think, wait a minute, Aerith might be alive. Zack is alive. They're actually. So I just want to put that out there for those of you who think that the ending might be changed. It doesn't make sense to put Advent Children back in the theaters.
Yeah.
At the when we came out, make a prologue for Rebirth to be included with the film, and just to say down the line, oh, that never happened, or it happened differently. That makes no sense.
That would be strange.
That would make absolutely zero sense. Yeah, that would be very, very strange.
Yeah, and Loveseeker, just to again, I don't want to make it seem as though we're shooting down the sequel theory. Absolutely not. I know that it's supposed to be in the past, but if you imagine that Advent Children is in the past, then it means this is taking place at the very least after the Dirge of Cerberus, maybe after the 500 flash forward. So is it all a simulation? Because Cloud, who goes into the Bombin mission in the OG, would remember if he goes through that again in 50 years. So is it all just a simulation in the live stream? And if it's all just a simulation in the live stream, why wouldn't it be a simulation within the OG? And then we get a moment where we go back to the surface. Do you see what I mean? I'm just taking the concept you use and saying that the same concept can be applied at any point in time, even before. You could go and remake a prequel to the OG with all of this if you accept that live stream simulations can impact real life events. Max also said he wants AC segments in part 3. Materia Hunter, this is again, I love Max's content, but I don't understand how you can want to have AC segments in part 3, but also say we need to decanonize it. For me, it doesn't add up, guys. I'm sorry. Wasn't there?
Remy, by the way, what he says there, from the vision that Harper gives them, did he see? There's no clip. Yeah, there's definitely a clip of Cloud Legion launching in Sephiroth that is taken also from Advent Children. And I think that at the end of the day, as I said before, this is actually great for the interest in the third game. I'm even willing to take some negativity because actually I think this would, there's an old saying, when something goes right, you tell 10 people. If something goes wrong, you tell 50.
Yeah.
So I think that, again, this is all actually great marketing for the third game because of the talk of the sequel versus. For me, I think that the game is somewhere in the middle. I actually think this is my personal view. I believe all of this is taking place while Cloud is in the live stream after the events of Northern Crater during the OG. Yeah. I think he's still in there. This is Aerith and Tifa joining later on, going through all of his memories, trying to figure out what happened to him and guiding him towards his whole self, which obviously will, because the biggest clue to my theory about that is something that Nojima said about Carl Jung and Yogacara. He said if we would have studied those two school of thoughts, we could actually guess the ending. The only way that makes sense to me is to guess that at some point Cloud wakes up.
Yeah,
that one makes perfect sense. Cloud realizes that all of this, he wakes up a whole person, and then the game will end just like what they said. It will follow the OG. So he wakes up, and then the game will continue on as we know it to be.
Absolutely. And I don't want to market my own video, guys, here. But Loveseeker, you do see that Sephiroth has to reinsert himself into the past for everything to change. Our bitter fate is Genova. I hear you. Once again, here is a question. Because I said, I'm not sure if you saw the video, but I said this in the Sephiroth video.
And manifest them in an instrumentalized way.
By the way, guys, this was a completely shattered voice with a cold. And you probably hear it in my voice, right? But I still had to record and get the video out.
In the past. So the rhetorical question becomes, does Remake reference Advent Children memories, or is it the other way around?
Do you see what I mean? The question is, if you can use memories to influence the past or the future, is it possible that Remake is now showing us the memories that Jenova will summon? Listen to this.
Eventually manifest the memories of Cloud and others from Remake in Advent Children, recreating the Expressway Sephiroth fight in its latest attempt to be reborn into the planet. Does the true Sephiroth refuse to become a memory after Advent Children, leading to his return in Remake? A Sephiroth who struggles to remember who he is, who unlike his OG self is obsessed with Cloud, and who shares the exact same mission as Jenova, sailing the cosmos with this planet as his vessel? Or is it all the doing of Jenova itself, lingering in the livestream, clinging to people's memories, and desperately looking for the strongest possible connection in the physical world to manifest Sephiroth and bring him back? Is this him or the memory of him?
that is so well said.
Yeah, so this is why the question is, guys, if we have memories, we can use them interchangeably. You can summon... It is, in fact, easier to assume that the Remake memories are being created now, and that in the events that take place 2 years later, the memories we are creating in Remake will be referenced and used by Jenova to summon Sephiroth, rather than Remake is summoning events from something that should have not happened yet. It is easier to accept that Advent Children will be a sequel to Remake than the opposite. Materia Hunter, just think about it this way. If the Expressway fight is a tribute to the Advent Children fight, because they are stylistically very similar, right? The Remake fight with Sephiroth is essentially a recreation of the fight with him in Advent Children. Is it possible that Advent Children is actually stealing the memories of the fight from Remake rather than the opposite? Jenova takes the memories of Remake and Advent Children and summons Sephiroth rather than the opposite.
Right, and I think that again. Remember something that Katase said. He says the difference is people's interpretation of what links to Advent Children means. But Katase actually expanded on that. He doesn't say it was going to link to Advent Children. He says that the story would not go out of the way where it does not end up Advent Children in the end.
Yeah.
So to me, I think that that's conclusive enough of a statement where I don't think it's a situation where the ending is going to be changed or something like that. I really think that, again, Remake is giving context to Advent Children. Like, I can go back a little bit. When I was talking about Zack, when Zack appeared to Cloud when he's losing his fight against Sephiroth and Advent Children, he says, "You need a hand?" How is he going to ever help?
Yeah.
He's dead. So it's like, how would a dead Zack actually help him? But then, if you think about it, that this is his Zack persona, as we've been talking about over the last couple of hours, that makes perfect sense. And the very fact that he tells his Zack persona once. By the way, Steve, I'm sorry to do this. Do you mind playing just a little bit of the Ever Crisis intro where you see Cloud fighting Zack?
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Yeah.
Because I think that gives, because again, we see this in the intro to Ever Crisis. We also see this at the end of Rebirth.
Yeah.
In a slightly differently talented, but it's the same thing.
Well, obviously, let's just hear what Sephiroth is going to say. Memory. A story is given shape and we zoom in on one story. This is what the visuals are trying to explain. Another possibility.
Interesting.
But what happens afterwards? He's like, Cloud, follow me, let's start another possibility. I guarantee you that this will be a segment we see in part 3. I guarantee you this, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Materia Hunter, we'll get to that. We'll get to link up. I disagree, obviously, but I will explain why. Look at the feather. Are the feathers disappearing? Are the feathers fading away or not? I need to zoom in on the floor. Let us begin a new journey, Cloud. You know when this happens? When Cloud loses himself, because he has him where he wants him then. The feathers are real. Obviously, it's a tutorial, right? But what happens here? Listen, look at this. This is just like the Edge of Creation, guys. Why does Zack appear?
Okay.
It's symbolism that Cloud is able to dive into his Zack persona to resist Sephiroth.
So I wanted just to point it out that when I saw that, it all clear. Thanks to Steve was the first one that came up with this theory. I am not sure. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I am not sure how we even seen Zack in
Absolutely.
Rebirth, the real Zack. I think that what we have seen is what they call it. What it is called? It's called a thematic inversion. In the original, what was the plot twist? You know, of course, Cloud really wasn't Nibelheim, but he wasn't the first-class soldier. It was Cloud cosplaying as Zack. In the Rebirth, it might be the exact opposite. It might be Zack cosplaying as Cloud. He represents the idealized hero that Cloud always wanted to be.
Exactly. And you spoke about the Advent Children memory being shown by the Harbinger. It's exactly like this. It's Cloud attacking Sephiroth but the camera angle is from behind where Zack is. And by the way, I know it's from Advent Children, but the memory itself that the Harbinger shows is not from Advent Children chronologically. And we will get to that when we get to the memories. Is there anything on chat we missed up? Yeah, so linked up. Here is a question, Materia Hunter, and I'll just let me know what you think, and then we'll start at the same time the video, the chapter 18. We'll continue with that. Do you think that if Kitase wanted to say that we just link up as in reference it, would you agree that he would have used something different rather than than say something that seems very much link up and make it canon? Wouldn't you think that he would say something like, Advent Children is very much an influence for Remake? Here is a very easy way of saying that we link up. It's an influence. And we could go and have our great crazy theory crafting to say, oh, influence means that it's events in the past that influence the current timeline of Remake. Or influence is just symbolic in terms of the design and the fight and whatnot. Wouldn't you think that he would have used the word influence instead of link up? Because link up means that two things are not connected and you're adding something that connects the two. And it's possible, is the Remake epilogue the link up between AC? I'm not saying it's not canon. Yeah, it would still be canon. What I'm saying is link up is very close, much closer to keep the timeline intact rather than just be referenced. So does the explanation in your video mean it's just bootstrap paradox? Josh, I agree partially. Yeah, I would say because you know what the key is there is that Jenova uses memories to impact real events. So memories in theory should not be impacting, should not bring a bootstrap paradox. But because Jenova can use memories to change the landscape, this is why it becomes a bootstrap paradox due to memories. Yes, Love Seeker, but the Advent Children link, that is not a link. That is a reference or an influence. A link is something that it directly links the two chronologically in this case. I don't think we can interpret it differently. If you don't have it, I think we should look at Katase's entire statement, because I actually believe that it should put an end to this, because he doesn't just stop there when he says it'll link to Advent Children. He says straight up, the story is not going to deviate where it does not add up to Advent Children in the end. And on top of that, he says that's not what we were aiming for anyway, and the story does not allow for that. So he, and of course at the very beginning, he says Remake will make Advent Children canon, which is a little interesting to say it that way, because that's what we start thinking maybe we'll see some AC stuff in the third game. Yeah. But based on all four of those statements that he says that AC is becoming canon, it links up to Advent Children, the story will not deviate to the point where it doesn't add up to Advent Children in the end. I mean, to me, I don't think there's no ambiguity there that we can really say that maybe we shouldn't take him at his word. To me, it's very matter of fact that he's saying, yes, Advent Children, it's coming. That's ultimately where, and it makes sense. This is all about Cloud's journey. Notice that they didn't say that the unknown conclusion. Yeah.
It says the unknown journey.
Absolutely. It's not the unknown destination.
Right, right, and that's what I'm saying is we did not in the OG. We saw a peripheral look at Cloud's journey to get where he was at the end of the game. Now we're getting an in-depth look at what it was, and it was actually a lot more emotionally exhausting than we ever thought it was. It wasn't just, oh, I just had a bad childhood, and Tifa fell to the ground, and that made me go join Soldier. And I saw my best friend Zach die.
Yeah.
That's a very high level, 10,000 feet view of it, but really it's a lot more. I mean, in Remake, they started, but Sephiroth taunts Cloud by reciting his mom's last words.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a very, very tumultuous, a very, very, very intimate look at Cloud's life, from the point that he left to become a soldier all the way up into the events of the OG. And we'll find that it's a very, very painful journey, but it's a very, very likable, very relatable journey, because at the end of Advent Children, we see how he ultimately ends up, even despite all of the bad. I mean, if you really look at it, I mean, Cloud loses his mom. His mom is killed by the man that he idolized. He makes a best friend that he emulated. He dies. He befriends another girl that's very important to him. She dies again by Sephiroth. I mean, when you make the totality of it, I mean, it's been one casualty after the other. It's all so much for one man. So it makes very much sense that he will lose his mind.
Yeah.
I know I would have if all this stuff happened to me.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to make this, guys. I've been criticizing people doing this. I don't want to make this. I don't want to make the same. I don't want us to make the same mistake than what we are criticizing. So I've been sitting here and saying this is what link up means for us. There are people who will interpret it differently, and that is completely fine. Link does not mean AC follows retrilogy. I understand that that's how you interpret it. I personally cannot get to a conclusion where I see it as something that is reasonable for me. This does not mean that your opinion is not valid or that you are just saying nonsense, Materia Hunter. I just want to make this perfectly clear. People have distortions in perception. Nomura himself says that every person has their own version of Final Fantasy VII in their mind, right? I don't want us to fall into the mistake of those who we criticize, in the sense that there is no way for this to be a sequel. I don't want to be definitive like that. What I'm saying is, based on my interpretation, I have not seen enough evidence that will convince me personally that this is what it is. If the story ends up being... I want to set the record straight on this thing. I will like every single thing that they cook. Not because I just want to like what they put out there, maybe, but because I trust these writers enough to know that they absolutely know what they're doing and that they will not give in to what anyone... People have been saying, I hope they're listening to us. This is what we want. What I say is, please do not listen to any old head from our crazy bunch talking crazy about FF7. I try to be very civil in the way I say that. Please don't listen to any of us. Don't listen to me. If the writers are tuning into if the writers are part of the 33 people watching this stream, I hope so. That's amazing. You guys are heroes. Please don't listen to us. When writing the story you want to write. I don't want us to start saying, I hope they're listening to us. This is what the majority of the fandom wants. No, I am no one to say, regardless of how many followers you have, I don't think you have the right to say, this is what people want. And I'm speaking on behalf of people. I hope you're listening to us. The writers will tell the story they want to tell.
I also want to I want to be fair to the people that believe this is a sequel, because there is some confusion. Just because you believe it's a sequel does not necessarily mean you believe that the ending will change as a result.
Yes.
That's two different things. For example, there are people out there who think that Aerith is going to be alive at the end of this.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see it, but that's fine. That's not what you guys are saying. I want to make sure that I don't want to put you all in, talk. I'm just going to be regurgitating what you already said. Is that, yeah, I want to make sure we're being fair to you. That's a completely different line of thought to say that this is a sequel to the original or to Advent Children versus, the ending is going to change and Aerith and Cloud are going to live in paradise.
Those are completely different topics. We need to split those out too.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I want to be very fair to that.
And Remy, I know you're talking about Max here. He said we trust the writers many times. This is why I love Max's content, is that he's very positive about everything. it is still possible to disagree with people punctually when they say something that you think is not consistent with how you view life. I did not like to see Max say, I am no one to say this. I did not like to see him say, the only way for it to make sense, if this does not change Advent Children, then it's plain bad. I'm paraphrasing. I hope that I'm not misrepresenting what he said. Or that all the discourse is due to shippers. I don't think that's the case, because proof is in the proof is here. Are we shippers? Have you guys seen me ship anyone? There are people who think it's not a sequel for what it is. I don't think we should deflect. It doesn't stop the fact that I love Max's content.
And here's the thing though, is that I was not even aware until about a year ago. I wasn't even aware there was a shipping debate, because I didn't think there was something that's going to be debated as, okay, who does Cloud love, or who wants to be in a relationship with Tifa or Aerith. I'm like, well, one of them dies, so through the process of elimination, it only leaves one left. So I didn't really think it was a big story until I walked into that a year ago, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I wanted to make it clear that I love all of this. Even the parts of it I don't agree with it. I love the dialogue. I even love some of the negativity until it becomes personal. Then I have a problem with it. But I love the disagreement because this is what they intended. I think we all could agree that they knew all of this was going to happen. So and it's this actually part of the story. Our talk of whether or not this is a sequel is part of the story. The story is actually telling us, is it a sequel or isn't it? So I agree with you up to the point that they're trying to paint this as it could possibly be a sequel. I will only say that they also told you at the beginning of Final Fantasy VII that Cloud was a soldier.
Absolutely.
So just because they tell you something now doesn't mean it doesn't turn out to be true, false, or somewhere in between later. Because that's something that is Final Fantasy VII to its core. They love telling you stuff that's half truths, lies, distorted, etc. That's part of the story, and that's part of the remake story.
Absolutely. And Love Seeker says a very similar thing here. The story is literally portrayed to create discourse. The writing is specifically done so that we sit down on this 3-hour stream and have this conversation. This is like, if we ask what was the point of the changes, it was this specific stream. They wanted us to stream today on Saturday, May 9th and have this chat. None of the other streams are valid. They just want people talking and theorizing. Absolutely. Always have respect for Max. It has been cult-like. I kind of agree partially. Faith being linked. Yeah, I think thematically, Naysai, I'm not exactly sure about the pseudo, but thematically, I think they're similar. Yeah. And I do want to go back to this because we're failing to deliver on our promise for now, but don't say that loud.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's a great chat still.
You know what? We still got a year to go.
Yeah.
Well, that's less than a year, hopefully. And I want us to have. I'd rather be this than do it and nothing else to talk about.
Or fighting on X.
That we get. Yeah.
I totally agree. So where we were is that we were talking about this memory. So we zoomed out of Cloud's head at the beginning. Let's bring back dialogue.
Boy, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
The price of freedom is steep.
The Shinra theme in the background. Someone said Barrett X Shinra middle manager. Remy, I agree.
Embrace your dreams. And whatever happens, protect your honor. As a soldier! Come and get it!
Oh.
We zoom out of Aerith with a surprised face because I believe this is the moment Aerith realizes what really happened to Zack. Remember, she feels he might have died in Crisis Core, but she doesn't know exactly what happened.
Your honor. As a soldier! Come and get it!
By the way, I just wanted to point out something here. Aerith, to your point, I also believe this. Aerith is finding out what really happened to Zack. She knew pretty much how she died. This also explains why she acted like she did and why she was so rude to Zack's parents. Yes. Because she did not want. If you think about this and go back to Remake, remember how she blurted out that I want to say Claudia, when Elmira's husband died?
Yeah.
And you see how she took it? I bet she was thinking, I don't want to do that to Zach's parents.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say anything. So let me remove myself from this situation so I don't get in that precarious position where, because she's not a liar. If they ask her point blank, it'll be very hard for her to get out of it. So she's rather like, nope, we got to go. Sorry, that's how I took it.
And I don't know if she's definitive about knowing his fate, to be honest, in Gongaga. Because she I think she thinks 90% that he's dead, especially with what happened here. But maybe she still has doubts. Maybe there is part of her that wishes he is still alive, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that's something that's natural to all of us. I mean, even when we know that is not the case. And the thing about it though is that this is so human. This is evidence of great writing. To me, I swear I'm not going to go too much further into this, but to me that's what the so-called love triangle, and I really don't think it really exists, because I believe that Aerith in Rebirth in chapter 14, she's actually trying to realize that her feelings for Cloud are rooted in her feelings for Zack.
Yes.
That is what is going on there, because the clue is that the Cloud didn't know that the church was their spot. That's Zack and Aerith's spot.
Absolutely.
Not Cloud and Aerith's
exactly.
spot.
And this is why you see Zack appear right afterwards.
Right. It's one of those things where, again, I'm not going to get into all of that, but I only say that to talk about that. I love the writing in this. This is worthy of a 30-year cook, because it shows you that love isn't so simple as loving someone and forgetting about the other. That's one thing that I never kind of get is, oh, she's over him. I don't know. If I found out that somebody I was in love with that I sent over, she sent out more than she made more than 88 letters. She destroyed some of them, as we find out in Dear Destiny. But that's not something you just get over.
Yeah,
and just fall in love with somebody. Like, it doesn't. That's not realistic, and I think that's what Nojima was trying to say.
And it's
here.
possible to like different people in different ways, guys.
Yes, very much.
Cloud has a part of Zack inside of him. There are a lot of sources saying Aerith prefers Cloud, Psycho, Unicorn. I don't think so. I mean, I'm happy if you bring me references, and I'm so sorry if I'm missing something, but I don't believe that the majority of sources. I would say that the vast majority of sources, especially if you look at things like Dear Destiny, for example, tend to go the other way, right? Yeah, and her liking Cloud does not. We just saw her story with Cloud, with Zack. She says she's looking for the real Cloud, Materia Hunter. Hold on, no, hold on. I'm sorry, I have to bring this. So, I will show you in French. Why do I show you in French? Because I don't speak Japanese, and because English messes up the translation. But I can tell you what it is in French. Blah, where is it? Psycho Unicorn, I think you're referring to this. Listen, I'm gonna translate what she's saying, okay? He tells her Sephiroth is here. And she tells, yes, I know. But now, you only need to think about yourself. I'm fine, don't worry. No, you're not. She hasn't said it, obviously. Find your real personality, Cloud. Think only about yourself, please. This is where the translation gets really tricky, guys. I'm so sorry to do this once again for people who localize. I know it's very hard to localize, but the fact that we found a French version, which people who also speak Japanese have confirmed that this is much closer to this. The novels, it depends on which novels we're talking about, right? She knows the real Cloud, Materia Hunter. I would think that. I don't think she knows the real Cloud, because we don't have evidence of her.
See, that's what this is. To me, that's what this is all about.
She doesn't know him.
To me, I think she's getting to the point where she's looking for the real Cloud. Now, I think the chapter 14 is when she finally finds
Yes,
Cloud, because
and
to
that's
your
possibly
point,
him.
he does not have the sword. Yeah, he doesn't have the sword. This is the
Yes.
real Cloud, not the exact persona. And she's doing two things. One is she gives him the white material at the end. That's the whole point of this. That's going to be the key to breaking a Cloud out from under Genova's control. But also, she there is trying to clear up her feelings
Yes.
for Cloud there. And and I'm gonna let you play it, because I like you to translate it from French.
Yeah, no, I didn't want to go too much into it, but I just wanted to reply to Materia Hunter.
Okay.
Materia Hunter, my friend, her knowing the difference, because she's etc. realizing that this guy is not who he thinks he is, does not necessarily mean she knows the real person. Because knowing the real Cloud means that you have physically seen him before what happened in Nibelheim. And the only people who know the real Cloud are Zack, Sephiroth, just in a very casual way, Tifa, his mother, and all the Nibelheim people before. And obviously, maybe Kunsel, for example, and his friends from the Shinra Troopers. Those are the only people who know the real Cloud. Agree to disagree. This is just how I interpret the story, right? One Winged Angel, why would she not be looking for the real Cloud even if she didn't have feelings? That's just what a friend would do. I am not against it. I have been attacked by Kalates on Twitter for saying that what Aerith was doing here is to help the real Cloud. Doesn't mean she knows him.
I didn't realize. Yes, I didn't realize. I mean, yeah, I didn't. I was there.
Yeah.
We talked about that one particular X post that talks about that. They're both helping Cloud
Exactly.
in different ways. I mean, and both of them have an ability that the other doesn't. I mean, Tifa was there from Cloud's childhood.
Yes.
She can confirm that he is real. Aerith is etc. So she's able to have insight that Tifa doesn't
Yes.
have. I'm like, they all play a role in the story of making Cloud whole, and it doesn't necessarily have to be about which one plays a better role or a bigger role. I mean, I feel like that's not the point. The point is they both play an important role, and they both are needed for the story.
Just like Tifa's role with the weapons, with the planet, which seems to be a much more Aerith kind of thing in the OG, has been expanded, with Tifa now knowing the weapons when she had her small live stream sequence. Just like that happened, it is very possible to accept that Aerith's role has been expanded to also help find the real Cloud, because the two crisis points in Final Fantasy VII is the fate of the planet, the weapons, Sephiroth, Jenova, and so on, and Cloud's identity. Just as Tifa's role has been enhanced in the first one, it is possible for Aerith's role to be enhanced in the second one without them clashing or without us necessarily having to say it's one or the other. Crabtree, Jared, welcome again. It was great to talk to you yesterday. She can tell he isn't being his real self. Exactly. Not that she knows exactly who he is. Exactly. Thank you. I can totally agree on that. All right. I feel like we need to advance because we will stop probably sometime before the Harbinger. We might get into the Harbinger, hopefully. So let's see what happens here. Okay. So we get the memories. We zoom out of Aerith, right? The two people who are supposed to feel something with this memory are Cloud and Aerith. This is all omitted from the voice script, of course. Does Sephiroth know this memory or not? We don't know. He might have seen it. And Cloud is like, why, what's going on? Why am I seeing this guy? Who is this guy? Because he doesn't even remember who he is. But he feels something still. Remember, guys, physically, we are not very far from the actual grave of Zack. We are very close to it. As soon as we jump out of the Expressway and into the edge of Midgar, we are very close to where Zack is buried. Bunke, is it possible that they were about to literally see his body because he has been dead and thrown there? And that's why all of this happened? It's to Cloud's perception and to not make him notice his body? It's possible. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. What are we talking about? We're talking about Chapter 18, but we went on multiple tangents, which were great.
Yeah, we did. And I think that, again, what you just showed there, when the camera was zooming out of Aerith, and that her seeing that, I mean, if you really think about this, when did the mental fracture occur? It occurred here.
Yes.
It occurred here. This is where everything begins to go wrong for Cloud. It really goes wrong. And I was also thinking it's pertinent to point out that you see Sephiroth slicing through the whispers. Again, That's very pertinent because when we see Sephiroth next, he's controlling the Whisper, but this version of Sephiroth is not controlling the Whispers. I think that's a very important distinction to make.
Which is why he needed the party to go into here and do something, and we will see what he wants them to do. This is much more come quickly Cloud rather than I'm waiting Cloud. In French and Japanese and everything, it says come quickly Cloud.
I'm waiting, Cloud.
And remember this line because it's very important. Oops, this is probably going to be too loud. Let's bring it back here. This shot is really supposed to represent just Cloud following him. You see how the direction here kind of gives you a hint, right? That this is about Cloud following Sephiroth. They really make it very clear here. And he accepts. Let's do this. I love the music here. It reminds me of In the End by Linkin Park, but it's great. So she says this is the point of no return, and then something takes her, something happens to her, and she's not the same person anymore. Look at how the portal will change, guys. She raises her hand. White spell. Do you see the rainbows? Holy is associated with rainbows and whites. We just need to keep remembering that rainbows are very much a holy property. It's...
By the way, can I ask the audience, when you see this, I'm glad you stopped on that frame. Yeah. There is another scene in Rebirth where this exact same thing happens. And that's in chapter 14. When after she gives Cloud the white materia, you see that exact same explosion of light and everything, and then you see matter disappear. Matter disappearing, because you can see that the floor of the church, there was stuff on the floor, all of a sudden they're not there yet once the light hits it.
Yeah. And the question is, Omni Livestream Aerith taking control? I do not like to think of her as Omni Livestream Aerith. I just like to think of Aerith as someone who can all of a sudden get some Cetra knowledge and do things that even her is not aware of, because she has a power that she cannot control. And sometimes maybe the spirit of the Cetra or the knowledge of the Cetra, her half Cetra side, takes over. And this is why she seems kind of overpowered. Josh, thank you so much for the super chat, my friend. I think people often make the mistake of projecting Aerith's feelings for Cloud onto Cloud instead of taking his feelings at face value. Discussion gets messy if people forget Cloud is his own person. I totally agree. I also think that it's possible for people to like different people, essentially, and like them in different ways. Some as friends, some as lovers. You know, there are different layers to this. I'm working right now cooking steak and chicken at Applebee's, but I still want to see what's up with everything. Yeah, we've been up for 3 hours. We will wrap up in a few, just once we get a few very important scenes. But we will listen. Next week, part 2. I want everyone who's here at the very least to be there for part 2, because we need to break down this thing, the entire thing, okay? We have never seen Holy Materia Hunter. We've never seen Holy being used yet in Remake or Rebirth. The white materia is memories, complications follow. Yeah, absolutely. So, I got given that we paused it here. Ultra Instinct Aerith. I love that. What did Aerith do here, guys? Did she cast Holy on the portal? Or did she just cast some sort of Cetra white spell? Did she use her own white materia? Did she make the materia hollow at this moment because she used the entirety of Holy? That's why Holy is then imprisoned by the Harbinger inside? Or did she just use some sort of part of it? Did she just use it to cast a white Cetra spell? We were divided on this yesterday. I still don't know how I feel about it. Bunke, what do you think? Do you think she did cast the entirety of Holy here?
The thing about it, though, is that Holy was described as her talking to the planet. That's why Alfauna.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Holy or her just using the white materia. I kind of differentiate that. I think a Holy is a type of prayer that Aerith used at the Forgotten Capital. She's using the white materia here. I don't know. However, I will say this. I do believe that this is a protection mechanism. She grabs the Cloud and she says, this is the point of no return. I think we're going to head into a deeper layer of Cloud's consciousness.
Yeah.
And that if they mess up here, it could mean that Cloud's lost forever. That's why I think this is the of no return.
I also think the symbolism here is if Cloud walks into the barrier and follows Sephiroth, seek, but alas, seek and you shall find, but alas, you will lose what you cherish most, which is his true self, which is himself.
Yeah.
I think that there is also some fear of Cloud walking into this and following Sephiroth, because that's the moment that he loses his own will and becomes a puppet for following and being summoned by Sephiroth. I think that's another way of looking at it. I mean, this also looks like Healing Wind. Yeah. Oh, amazing reference. Yes, it does look like Healing Wind. Healing Wind is a bit greener.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But I get it. Yeah.
Right?
I like
it's their
that.
limit break.
That in the and remember in Rebirth, she's not there to cast this. When Cloud walks through another
she casts
barrier,
it from. It
just
seems
like
to be
this.
cast from the inside. It seems to happen by itself.
Yeah, oh yeah, you know what? If not this week, next week, I would love to compare these two, because I think that's a great conversation.
The thing with Rebirth is that there are a lot of similarities, like Holy, like the Harbinger blocking Holy and then Genova blocking Holy, or some sort of white magic, is also things that we want to compare between Remake and Rebirth, and we will need to. Any tips for getting your significant other into FF7? Remy, I think it depends on whether they play video games. So my wife only likes action video games. I will be honest and say that she only did it because she loves the things that I love, and she really wanted to understand why is this guy like making content on a daily basis about this. It is very hard to get them into Remake now because the payoff to Remake is in part 3. If you could wait until part 3 is done and make, you know, the experience go from A to Z, I think that would be better. Because Remake and especially Rebirth can be frustrating at times with the lack of solutions they give. I wouldn't get anyone into the OG who does not know FF7 in 2026 unless they are like really hardcore gamers and they don't mind. They have played old games before and they don't mind replaying them or playing different versions. Yeah, it can't be used all of it because we see it later. I don't think we see it later. We don't see her white materia. We don't see her materia whether it's white or hollow. This is why it's kind of weird. Kate's predictions are in reverse order. We do need to have something about Kate's predictions as well. We do need to analyze that eventually. You see, guys, rainbows. And so let's just remember that rainbows are supposed to represent holy. Dreams, dream worlds, people's hopes and dreams are more akin to white side of the live stream rather than black. This makes sense. Now, what does this turn into? My interpretation about the portal... Can we see it from afar?
Destiny's crossroads.
I will speed this up a bit.
And why did you stop me?
I'm not really sure.
She doesn't know why she stopped him, right?
What will we find on the other side? Freedom.
Found this terrifying freedom. So the way I see this is that it is now a struggle between black and white livestream. Initially, it was just going into the black livestream, which symbolically could be just following what Sephiroth wants to do. But because of what Aerith did, it is now a struggle. It is you're going into a space where it could go either way. And I think the only reason we have white whispers in Rebirth is because she did this. If she didn't do this, we would only have black whispers in Rebirth. This is how I interpret it.
Right. I think that the boundless, terrifying freedom, again, this is where everyone's talking in code.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about here? To put it plainly, for those wondering, I believe that Fate is referring to Cloud, fate of being a Genova puppet. He is breaking that fate. This is what is meant by defying fate, and that's why the very first vision you saw is of Zack, because that's where his cloud fracture, his mental fracture starts. And this is basically Aerith and later on Tifa trying to put Cloud, help him put back together. So looking at it from a symbolic point of view, and to answer your question, Steed, about this, they're going to go into deeper parts of Cloud's psyche, and again, when you're messing with somebody's mind, if anything goes wrong, it could be that's why she says it's terrifying freedom. It might mean you can break free from it, but it's not without tremendous risk. That's basically my TLDR on it.
Yeah. And Loveseeker says this part is a little weird. I don't think they lead exactly where Sephiroth desired. I will tell you why. Because I think that if Aerith didn't do this, then this wouldn't happen. We will get to this next week, obviously, but zooming in on Cloud. Come on, tell me it's not about him. If Aerith didn't purify the portal, I don't think this happens. I think that this only happens because this is very holy friendly imagery. Standing above the water with wind and white, background is very much white live stream-esque and holy friendly imagery.
Yeah, this looks just like the rebirth
exactly
fight at the end with Aerith.
Exactly. It's very much and this leads us to ask whether it's all taking place in the Edge of Creation already, because that is already the Edge of Creation. What changes is the background depending on what whispers are dominating at that specific moment in time. This might be where they split into a new world. Materia Hunter, I like that idea because I need some ground rules into where the duplicates go. I still think the Tornadoes is a strong one, but when they walk into the portal is also a great one. And what better moment, by the way, to end this stream than the moment when they walk into the Singularity. I think that's how we will do it. So with Aerith adding that to the portal, Cloud become torn between black and white live stream. Absolutely. And Zack happens to be in the white live stream realm, which is why he can appear to help Cloud. Because Zack's persona is in the white side of Cloud's live stream. Let's imagine that this is Cloud's live stream. Zack's persona is in the white side of it. Sephiroth's persona is in the Sephiroth's will is in the black side of it. That is the clash. It's the clash between the two personas, or the two
in the game
versions.
And then just think about, we were talking about the feathers, so that's why you see the white feather and you see the black feather.
Yes, absolutely. Materia Hunter says, you and I have my different understanding of what holy is. I am curious to know what yours is. My understanding of holy, based on what I read in the lore, is that holy always counters black materia. So if we have black materia, if we have meteor, holy's objective is to undo meteor. It is not specific. It does not necessarily purify or heal. It is just about saving the planet from the destruction caused by the black materia. So I think that holy in this case, I think that the white live stream symbolized by holy counters the black live stream. Do you see what I mean? Whenever you have so whatever the black materia is used for, holy can be used to counter it. This is how I understand it. It's very vague, but the purpose of it being made and given to the Cetra was to protect the planet from destruction. We see this scene essentially in the Shinra simulation about the Cetra, and Sephiroth shows up as well. It is very similar, but we don't see Sephiroth summoning Meteor, Loveseeker, so this is kind of the difference. How come when he goes through the gate, he gets separated from everybody and gets knocked out? I agree, Jarrett. This is what... Not only knocked out, I think we are almost taken to a different layer of his consciousness, because this is what we were going to go into, right? So before we wrap up, let's read some dialogue regarding what happened before we walk into this, so that we wrap up everything before the wall, okay? So that next week we have a clear agenda. Aerith too is pained by the cries of destiny. Remember how only Cloud and Aerith are emphasized here. They are pained by the cries of destiny, the cries of losing Zack. That is their destiny, both of them. This is the thing that ties them. She struggles with all her might and lifts her head. This might be the moment where she realizes what really happened. The cries of destiny subside and the scene cuts to Sephiroth. A wall suddenly appears. It's actually a dome, but to Cloud and the others it looks like a wall. Sephiroth brandishes the katana, the Masamune, at the Wall of Whispers. A cut appears in the wall and widens into a hole. The interior of the hole has a perilous look, as though the whispers within have been liquefied. Sephiroth inserts his hand into the hole with an ominous sound effect. This does not happen, right? And because this was just on the voice script. He turns around and looks at Cloud with an inviting gaze. Come quickly, Cloud. Though this may sound like a summons to the reunion, Sephiroth's real intention here is to invite Cloud beyond the wall and tell him the truth of the planet's fate. This is what he does at the Edge of Creation. What is being done here is that Sephiroth wants to convince Cloud to join his cause, basically. With a slight smile, he passes through the wall. Cloud gazes at the wall, and for a moment with hesitation then starts to follow Sephiroth through. As he does, Aerith grabs hold of him to make him stop. Our path branches here. Cloud halts his advance and shows he's ready to listen to what Aerith has to say. Aerith lets go of him. Everyone's eyes naturally settle on Aerith. She touches the wall with her hand. Upon doing so, a ripple of light spreads out like an ocean filled with... What is this?
No, I have no idea what that's the first time I've ever seen that word. I have no idea. Don't ask me.
Oh, wow. Sea sparkle.
Okay.
So
okay.
this is very much what this is again similar to where they are after they defeat the Harbinger. Like if you imagine the ocean with this, it's so the way it's portrayed here is very different compared to how the game presents it, isn't it, guys? Because she touches the wall, and then a ripple of light spreads out. This is Destiny's Crossroads. Why did you stop me? I'm not sure. What will we find on the other side? Aerith thinks about it for a moment and seems to find the right word. Freedom. Her response echoes Zack's line. This is again something that you don't really get in the game. Everyone's gaze shifts to the wall. But freedom is scary, isn't it? Like the sky. And remember why Aerith talks about the sky, because it takes away people that she loves. Aerith slowly turns back to the others. Despite her confusion, she feels she must express her emotions about dragging everyone into all of this. You heard them, didn't you? The screams of the planet. Barrett catches his breath. They're the voices of people who once lived on this planet, the cries of lives cycling our world. It's difficult to understand what Aerith is trying to say. Cloud questions her. Crying because of Sephiroth. Yes, but that man, he doesn't care about things like screaming. Aerith holds the thoughts and feelings of all who live on the planet dear to her heart. This is the two worldviews, guys. The priceless time we get to spend, the joy and happiness we feel, it all means nothing to him. They want the same thing. They want the well-being of the planet, but Aerith is not ready to let go of the joy and happiness and the priceless time we spend together. Aerith continues as if posing a question to everyone. And when the people precious to us are gone, he won't cry or shout or anything like that. Each member of the group pictures the people they cherish and wish to protect. This, by the way, reminds me of the final fight before they go and defeat Sephiroth. There are close-up shots of Barrett, Tifa, and Red's faces. Barrett thinks of Marlene, Tifa of the comrades she lost, and Red of his hometown. Cloud gazes at Tifa, then looks at Aerith. Aerith continues, now more passionately. All Sephiroth values is the planet and himself. He'd do anything to protect them, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. Aerith believes the planet would surely never desire Sephiroth's method of keeping it from dying. Guys, this is literally straight in our faces. A method that involves sacrificing the people in it. It's very clear he does not want something different than the OG. He's just disguising it in a way that is half convincing to Cloud. This is why all of this is happening. He is the true enemy of the planet. That's why I need to stop him. Cloud, I hope you... She looks around at the rest of her companions. And everyone else will help me do it. With all of us together, I know we can pull it off. Aerith starts to lose momentum and speaks now with less confidence. But this wall is the wall of destiny. If we go through it, if we go beyond it, then all of us will change too. This line.
Wait. Wow,
all of us will change is pretty big.
Ooh, yeah, that's big.
Yes. Materia Hunter is the purpose of Black Materia. Anything other than a big ass meteor? Well, it's used for the reunion in Rebirth. The Ultimania says that it was used for Rebirth, for reunion. Cool theory. So every fight with Sephiroth could be a dream battle inside Cloud's head. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a psychological struggle. Can the Black Materia spell appear as anything else but a meteor? I think it is just the black side of the live stream, the Gi and the Genova connections. Black Materia for sure is no longer about meteor. Maybe the fake Black Materia. Sephiroth made an effort to find the real. I think the fake Black Materia is about the reunion of worlds, and the actual Black Materia is about meteor, but it could be the opposite. I ask this because Holy can only appear as if it was the end of the OG. Well, this is where they change it. This is why Materia Hunter, one of the hypotheses is that, are we actually at the end of the OG? Is all of this taking place when they descend into the core of the planet? That's certainly a possibility. We could sit here forever, but we really need to wrap it up, right? Everyone reacts in silence. Aerith, I guess that's why I held you back. Just then the screams of the planet once again swell to fever pitch. Everybody recalls even more forcefully. The shriek spurs Cloud and he makes up his mind. The initiative passes. All of this to me just seems as though it's Aerith's pitch to everyone to convince them to join her cause. And it's possible that when they walk into the Singularity, all they see is that they are just walking into the edge of Midgard. This is what they remember. I feel like that could be possible. And it's just symbolism, right?
Destiny's Crossroads.
So let's just wrap it up until before they cross, and then we can
I'm not really
we can
sure.
finish.
What will we find on the other side?
Yeah, we saw this.
The sky. What you heard just now were the voices of the planet. Those born into this world, who lived and who died, who returned, are howling in
Yeah.
pain.
Because of him, Sephiroth?
Again, look at the she says yes in the Japanese, but here she says they, their words, they don't read. But she nods. It's supposed to be yes. Why isn't this yes, guys? Why doesn't the English say yes? Because of him. She said like the motion action is clearly supposed to indicate that she says yes. Why does it say they? This is the kind of stuff that I don't understand.
Their words, they don't reach him. All these moments and memories, precious.
Yeah, sideways. The VOD will be up for sure. I'll add the timestamps sometime today or tomorrow for sure.
He won't cry or shout or anything.
So this is just a different version of he doesn't care about the planet. He says he wants to protect it, but isn't the way it's supposed to be. It even says that Aerith thinks the planet will not be on board with what he wants to do in the script that we saw, right? He has to be, and I'm asking you to help me. We will be changing ourselves. So this is where it becomes tricky. And this, guys, I think I agree with Materia Hunter. I think this is the moment they split out. Because this line about changing ourselves is very consistent with two versions out once we cross into the Singularity. Materia Hunter, I think I agree with you. I don't know what you think, Bunkei, but I think this is the moment they split apart.
Yeah, I think this is the moment because they're about to head into a deeper layer of Cloud's consciousness. And it's just like when you do exploratory surgery. Surgery is always very risky. There's a lot of people who get surgery done at the hospital and do not live.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, for even something that's really, yeah. So this is very, 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 very important what she's doing here. She's being like a surgeon here with the scalpel with what she's doing here. But of course,
it's challenging.
If surgery is successful, it's challenging and successful. It's great. If it's not, it's disaster.
Yeah, indeed. And surgery is a great way of putting it, by the way. I love that. Right, and then we will walk into the wall. So I think this is a great place to stop it. Yeah, I'll have to wrap it up in like the next 5 minutes. But what a chat this was. I am aware that we went into a lot of tangents, but I feel like this is a very good, because these topics, you can't really tackle them without talking about all sorts of other things, right? You really need to make it a bit comprehensive, and you have to just go and talk about other stuff and stuff that you haven't seen yet that will appear later. So I'm actually very happy, even though we did not get to do the full thing. Guys, next week we will absolutely, either next week or the following one, we'll see depending on how things go during the week, but we will absolutely want to finish part 2. This might even be a 3-part thing. Catching up the Midgar versus Outer World being separate. How are you talking about the dome? I've been picking up on this, but no explanation. Glad you're here. Glad to hear you put some words into it. I'm really happy that that's the case. There is something there about the location. There is something that connects the worlds, I feel.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. I just wanted to say to all of you out there, it's been great talking. Please join our Discord. I love talking Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of voice chat because I got neuropathy in my hands, so typing all this out is really no bueno. So if you guys want to catch up with me and let's talk about it, I would love to hear from those, especially those of you that disagree with me. It's the disagreements that I learn more from than the agreements.
Yes.
I don't need confirmation bias. I need someone to make me think.
Absolutely. Guys, this is a space where if we are saying bullshit, it's on you to tell us, no, this doesn't make sense. And Materia Hunter, I love how you are very assertive with I disagree. This is why. Love Seeker, it was great to have you, for example, present the sequel idea from a different angle. I do not want us to be in a space where we just repeat each other's ideas. What's the point? Especially with the discourse that we had this week. Literally anyone, regardless of their opinion, have a very warm welcome on this channel to chat with us and tell us whatever they think. I don't care what their opinion is. They could even be just here to criticize this channel. That's fine. Regardless of what they think about the trilogy. If you love Final Fantasy VII Remake, we're already friends. We don't need to be in agreement about everything. If you love Remake, we're already great friends. This is all I'm going to say, guys.
Just like the Irish saying is, we're all friends here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we don't even need to know each other. We love the same thing. That is enough. That is good enough for me. Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bunkei, for being here. Thank you for all your insight, for the great chat. This was amazing, as usual. Thank you guys always for being present and being very interactive. I love when we have a lot of messages from the chat, because this is really what for me the value is. Appreciate it. Remy, appreciate it. XCOM, Okami Cloud, Cam, thank you guys so much. The final one, I think Sephiroth wants to live forever. Yes. Then fleeting moments, exactly. He wants to break the cycle of life and death. Unfortunately, life is only possible because death is possible. This is the best way I have of putting it, guys. Bunke, thank.
And just to say, I just wanted to say there's a race that tried to do that, and we saw how that ended. And we'll talk about more of that next week. Thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you have a great rest of the weekend. I hope that the beginning of the week is not going to be too harsh. And I hope to see you here next week. If you have not liked the stream, please do so. If you are not subbed, please do so. That is the best and easiest way to support the channel. I really appreciate everyone who already did that. Thank you so much for tuning in every time. And I hope to see you all next week once again. Take care, my friends, and we'll see you very, very soon. Yeah, and we are on Discord. We talk a lot on Discord, guys. Okay? We talk about all of this on a daily basis on Discord. Thank you, guys.